Members of the audience, if we are putting out some more chairs, so everybody, we hope, will have a seat. If you would please take your seat, we'd like to begin the meeting in 2 minutes. Thank you. You want to manage this? This time I'd like to call the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education board meeting to order. May I have a roll call?
Mr. Bayard. Mr. Bayard is absent. Mr. Bennett.
Here.
Mr. Bennett is here. Ms. Bradford is here. Ms. Bradford is here. Ms. Buquet. Here. Ms. Buquet is here. Mr. Garvey.
Here.
Mr. Garvey is here. Ms. Givens. Ms. Givens is absent. Mr. Geis.
Here.
Mr. Geis is here. Ms. Johnson.
Here.
Ms. Johnson is here. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee is absent. Mr. Romer. Mr. Romer is absent. Ms. Estug.
Here.
Ms. Estug is here.
We're adjusting the microphones.
Yep.
Okay. I have a quorum?
Yes.
We have,
Item number 3, approval of the agenda.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Thank you, Mr. Bayard. I have a second by Mr. Geis. Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries.
Item number 4, approval of the minutes of the June 15th, 2011 meeting.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the June 15th, 2011 meeting?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Garvey, I believe, and a second by Ms. Buquet. Board members, we do have an amendment, I believe, being brought forth to make 2 technical changes to the June minutes. I'm going to ask, how do you want to proceed with that? Board?
They be accepted.
Okay, those technical changes are reflected in your packet. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
I'm sorry. I have a second. I have first a motion by Ms. Bradford and a second by Mr. Garvey on the substitute motion to approve the revised minutes. Is there any opposition to the substitute motion? Hearing none, motion carries.
Item number 5, notices of intent advertised in the March 2011 issue of the Louisiana Register and ready for final adoption.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Johnson.
I'd like to pull 1706.
1706, special ed.
Yes.
Okay, and board members, Ms. Johnson has asked to, so are you making a motion to approve 5A, Bulletin 741?
The other items, but not 1706.
I'll second.
Okay, so Ms. Johnson has made a motion to approve item 5A, that's Bulletin 741. Am I correct, Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
With a second by Mr. Bennett. Is there any objection to that motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Now, we move to Ms. Johnson's item, and that is 5B, Bulletin 1706.
Yes, I've had a number of calls since the agenda came out concerning this particular bulletin. It is a bulletin related to special education, and it was my understanding that the bulletin needed to be amended simply because the legislature decided that administrative judges could handle certain proceedings. But according to what I have gotten from various people, the amendments are far greater than that, and they have not been vetted properly through the normal process that we use.
Ms. Johnson, I asked Ms. Pasternak, because I also received a call this morning, to look at that, and Ms. Ford, I believe, she advised me that the letters that were presented during the advertisement period were in fact received by the board at their last meeting. So the proper processes have been followed. The board did receive the public comment, those letters that were a question, and we did that at our, is it June meeting, am I correct? At our June meeting. So this is the step that follows that, and that is the final adoption. But let me let Ms. Johnson respond, and then Mr. Geis, and then Mr. Garvey.
Let me ask another technical question. If we find that we need to revise this again, what is the procedure for bringing it back to the agenda? Because it has gone out for notice of intent. It has received comments, 19 letters, which I do recall we did receive. And some of the letters now are that information is still being questioned as to what is in here. I have been told, and I do not know this because people just started calling since the agenda went out, that there may be some conflicting language in here with IDEA. So all I want to know is if any of this proves to be relevant, how do we bring it back?
I'm going to let Ms. Wozniak respond. It's a policy question.
So you're saying if the board adopts it today, and then the board could also direct the department to come back with, or to investigate the matter, any conflicting language, and ask them to come back with a new notice of intent.
Okay, so are you saying that right now I can direct the board to see if there's conflicting language in it and to come back at our September meeting and let us know whether or not they have addressed all of those issues?
I think Ms. Wozniak said you could direct the department.
Yeah, I'm saying
Said the board.
The department. I'm not trying to direct members of the board to do this.
Yes, I mean, and so you're
Okay, well then I will make the motion to approve it as it is with the understanding that the Department of Education will bring to us and take a look at the findings that have been presented and bring to us a report in September, and if need be, we will send it back out through the process.
Ms. Johnson, so Ms. Johnson has made a motion to approve, and I believe her request to the department has been noted by both the staff and the department, by Superintendent Tyler. Is there a second to Ms. Johnson's motion to approve?
Second.
Second by Ms. Buquet. Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion. Mr. Garvey, I'm sorry. Mr. Geis, did you want to speak to this?
Well,
and then Mr. Garvey.
Well, like everyone else, I'm sure I've received some calls, lots of calls, from special ed practitioners as well as some attorneys, and they have some of the same concerns that Ms. Johnson had. And they also was under the impression that PSAC had requested that this be sent back to the special ed supervisors before it came to us as a notice of intent. Now, I think they must be adjusted.
Okay,
Now, I don't know, I'm just relating what I've been told, but I would support Mrs. Johnson's motion.
thank you, Mr. Geis. Mr. Garvey.
Yes, I have a question for staff, I guess. We have a meeting coming up in 2 weeks, and we have a PSAC meeting tomorrow. Would it be possible for us to defer on this issue until our meeting in 2 weeks and get some input from PSAC tomorrow without causing any problems?
I can support that, Jim.
What's your motion, Mr. Garvey?
No, I have a question. The question is for staff. Would it cause a problem if we deferred on this issue until our meeting in 2 weeks and ask for some input from PSAC at their meeting tomorrow?
Well,
Okay.
we're being advised that this has already been to PSAC. Oh, excuse me. SEAC. Someone, Special Ed Advisory Council, for those of you who don't know our acronyms as well as we do. Mr. Garvey, that's a question. There's a motion on the floor right now by Ms. Johnson.
And I'm hearing from Ms. Tyler that it would not cause a problem, so I'd like to offer a substitute motion.
I'll
Okay.
second the substitute motion.
Ms. Gibbons, can you wait for the motion, please? Mr. Garvey, make a substitute motion.
Yes, my motion is that we defer on this issue until our meeting in 2 weeks.
We have a motion to defer until to the August regular board meeting. Is there a second, Ms. Givens?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Givens. We have a motion and a second to defer on this until the August meeting. Any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Item number 6, Board Advisory Council appointments.
I move approval, Madam Chairman.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Buquet, a second by Mr. Bennett, that we approve the item number 6, the Board Advisory Council appointments. Is there any questions on this item? Ms. Givens?
And this is more to staff. Are we sending out any kind of letters of thanks or commendations to the retiring members who are leaving the non-public school commission? And in that, I mean, Sister Kathleen Finnerty is retiring, and I would imagine Sister Immaculata is also retiring.
Yes, ma'am. As part of our normal procedure, when someone is appointed as a new appointee to an advisory council, a letter goes to that individual advising them of their appointee. In that case, if they're replacing someone on the council, a letter of thanks from the board goes out to the people who are being replaced.
Ms. Givens, thank you. Any other questions on this item? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Item number 7, consideration of approving new faculty, course offerings, and textbooks for the Louisiana School for Math, Science, and the Arts.
Okay, there's an item on the before the board. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Thank you, Ms. Buquet. We have a motion to approve item 7. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Bradford. Is there any questions to this item? Are there any objections to the motion? Motion carries. Next item.
Item number 8, consideration of the submission of nominees to be recommended to the governor for appointment to the Board of Supervisors of Louisiana Community and Technical Colleges.
Okay, is there a motion on this item?
Madam Chair,
Ms. Johnson.
I think I'm going to move approval because isn't it just to, as I read it, for the person who currently serves to continue serving? Okay.
Affirmative by staff. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I move approval.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Johnson. Is there a second to Ms.
I'll
Johnson's
second.
motion? Thank you, Ms. Givens. We have a proper motion and second on this item. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. I have a feeling this meeting's not going to go like this through the entire agenda.
Item number 9, consideration of approval of a cooperative endeavor agreement between the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education and the ARC of Greater New Orleans.
Move approval. And I think Mr. Garvey has been working on this. He might want a second.
Mr. Garvey,
Yes,
do you second Ms. Buquet's motion on the cooperative endeavor agreement? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions? Ms. Buquet?
No, I just want to say that again, we want to thank the ARC group for all the improvements that they have made to the property and for all the work that they have done. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Buquet. Ms. Johnson, did you have a question?
Yeah. I was going to ask Mr. Garvey because there are certain things in here that I'm really not sure that I understand.
yes,
We're
ma'am.
talking about a certain portion of ground in Jefferson Parish. So what did we really do to it?
The ground contains a building that is being used by the ARC to train. I think there's a description of their training mentally handicapped children or young adults for jobs, and they offer some counseling to very young children.
This is a renewal of something that's gone on.
I think that they've had this lease for 10,
That's what I
15,
was
or
trying to
20
figure
years.
out. All right, thank you.
And then since the training, they have done some
Yeah.
upgrades and so forth.
That's fine now.
And I haven't had to cut the grass.
You live too far away.
Okay, motion, discussion is complete, and we have a proper motion and a second. Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, audience members, I don't believe the majority of you are here to to hear the business that we just concluded. So I am going to take a moment to welcome you to our meeting and to thank you for being here. We do appreciate your presence and your engagement in this matter. At this point of the meeting, I want to remind board members and our audience today that because of the very sensitive nature of the matters that the board will be considering today, that the board will likely be using executive session to discuss matters pertaining to pending and prospective litigation, to personnel issues, and anything that could reveal the identity of a child, including the identification of the classroom teacher of that child. I ask that we all keep this in mind during today's proceedings. Board members and audience, to my left is Angelique Friel. She is an attorney she is our legal counsel with the Attorney General's office. She will be advising both me and the board members on, as we go through this process, to ensure that we don't do anything or say anything that could have any impact on pending litigation or pending investigations, because the matter before the board today is very specific to a school and the receipt by the state superintendent of the findings to date of a very broad investigation, much of which is not part of this meeting today and will not be discussed here today. And we will also be receiving the findings of the investigation today. The board will be asked to make a decision that really centers around the health, safety, and welfare of the children at Abramson School. So I respectfully ask that you consider your comments and your questions specific to the guidance that you've been given. And I also would like to advise you that if our attorney advises a board member or a member of the audience who will be making public comment, that those comments cannot be spoken in a public meeting because of the confidentiality of litigation or the children or the investigation, that you respect that decision when you're notified that you need to cease speaking. So, and that goes to the board. It goes to the board. It's for the audience, and I am going to slow this down, which is against my nature. If any of you, I tend to run through meetings very quickly, but we need to be very, very careful in this meeting so that you will see a different tempo from your president, because we want to make sure that what we do is right and correct and fair to all involved. So now that we have gone through that item, we move to now that I've gone through this part of the meeting, we move to the next item. Ms. Posniak.
Item number 10, consideration and ratification of the board president's ad hoc decision to place Abramson Science and Technology Charter School under suspension pending investigation.
Okay, is there a motion on this item? Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Bradford and a second by Mr. Garvey for ratification. Is there any discussion on the item?
I don't have any discussion, but I'd like a little bit of clarity, if it's okay. And Ms. Daster, you may say that this is something that needs to go into executive session. So
and Ms. Johnson, you and Ms. Friel will be advising me and advising you. So given the comments I just made, please keep that in mind.
I want to understand our role when it comes to suspending a school.
Ms. Friel.
Ms. Johnson, because this lies at the heart of pending litigation that's currently happening in the 19th JDC, I would prefer if we have the opportunity to address that with you in executive session.
Okay, that's fine. That's basically what I wanted to know. Because I want to support the president's ability to make a decision when the board is not meeting. That's not what my issue is. My issue is, did we have something that, and you can tell me this in executive session, where our authority lies and what we can and cannot do.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Ms.
Madam
Johnson.
President?
Ms. Gibbons?
I too have a question concerning the ability of the board to suspend a charter. And Srila, if you could give me the legislation that authorizes suspension of a charter, because I did not know that we could, in fact, suspend a charter. I thought the board could either grant it or revoke it. I didn't know that there was something in the middle called suspension. So could you tell me what the authority of what the law says we can do in that regard?
Sure.
Or is this something for executive session as well?
I would be glad to discuss that with you in executive session.
Any other questions? So there's a motion and a second to, on item 10. Is there any objection to the motion?
Yes, we are ratifying your decision.
We are.
To suspend the charter, and I'm going to vote against that.
Okay. Please note that Ms. Gibbons is opposed to the motion on item 10. Is there any other opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Item number 11, consideration of a report regarding Abramson Science and Technology Charter School.
Okay, board members and audience,
Madam Chair, before we get into that, I got one more question. There is nothing that tells us what to do with the report. Do we receive it? Or, there's nothing in the exec rec that tells us what we're supposed to do with this.
if you, Ms. Johnson, if you indulge the Ms. Tyler, I think she's going to be making a recommendation that might clarify that question, answer that question. There is, at some point, there will be an expectation that the board takes some action on the superintendent's recommendation. We're going to start, audience and board members, by having a presentation of the findings and a recommendation by Acting Superintendent Ali Tyler. We're going to begin with that. And then we are going to move next into public comment. And because I think that will allow the people who are here that want to speak before the board to do just that. And then the board can decide next steps after public comment. It has been suggested, and I think it's very likely that we will have an executive session. So, Ms. Johnson, and board members, that's the first 3 steps of this item. Ms. Tyler, well, I thank you for being here today, and it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Madam President and members of the board. Last month, after learning of allegations of incidents possibly sexual in nature involving students attending Abramson Science and Technology Charter School, the Department of Education commenced an investigation of these allegations, which is operated by the Pelican Educational Foundation. The purpose of this investigation was to determine if there are legitimate concerns about the safety, health, and welfare of students attending the Abramson School, and to determine if Abramson or the Pelican Educational Foundation or any of their employees violated any provisions of federal or state law, any policies of the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, or the charter school contract for a Type 5 charter school and the Recovery School District entered into on June 1st, 2007 between Pelican and its Board of Directors and BESE for the purpose of operating the Abramson School. The scope of this investigation has included, but has not been limited to, the following: allegations of incidents, possibly sexual in nature, involving 2 young students, allegations of incidents, possibly sexual in nature, involving other students. Other allegations, including an allegation of attempted bribery by a person possibly affiliated with the Pelican Educational Foundation, have been referred to the appropriate state agencies. Thus, the Department of Education's investigation is ongoing, as several other agencies are investigating other alleged incidents. However, because our investigation has already yielded several preliminary findings that involve the safety, health, and welfare of students at Abramson, we feel compelled to bring these issues to your attention for possible termination of the charter contract between BESE and Pelican and its Board of Directors, regarding the Abramson School. I'm recommending revocation of the Abramson Charter for the following reasons. And I will call on the investigation team from our department to add details or more details to the reasons that I'm going to present. Number one, lack of supervision. Our investigation has uncovered multiple instances of students at Abramson not being adequately supervised by school staff. Number two, failure to investigate. The failure to fully investigate instances of alleged sexual behavior occurring on the school campus seems to be a pattern, thereby placing the safety, health, and welfare of students in jeopardy. And thirdly, failure to take action and or failure to document, lack of adequate documentation, failure to provide documentation upon the request of the BESE board and the Department of Education staff, and lack of follow-up pertaining to alleged incidents involving the safety, health, and welfare of students at Abramson. The charter contract for Abramson School in paragraph 2.10 provides the school shall comply with all applicable federal and state laws concerning student welfare, safety, and health, including but not limited to state laws regarding the reporting of child abuse, accident prevention, and disaster response, and any state regulations governing the operation of school facilities. The charter contract for the Abramson School in paragraph 2.15.2 provides the charter operator shall supply in a timely manner all reports, test results, and other information that is required under this agreement, state law, and BESE policies and regulations. Pursuant to Children's Code Article 60315, a mandatory reporter of suspected child abuse and neglect includes teaching or child care provider, which is defined as any person who provides training and supervision of a child, including any public or private teacher, teacher's aide, instructional aide, school principal, or school staff member. The charter contract for Abramson School in paragraph 5.4.2 provides the charter contract may be terminated immediately and the charter revoked if BESE determines that the health, safety, and welfare of students is threatened. And for the reasons I've just cited, I recommend that the charter contract be terminated pursuant to Bulletin 126, Section 1701, B1, and in accordance with the paragraph 5.4.2 of the charter contract. And at this time, I'm going to ask if Mrs. Benderly and Mrs. Joan Hunt, if they would come to the table and give some other detailed information around these findings.
I have a question first.
Mr. Bayard.
Ms. Towles, the report that you talked about the BESE staff, could you reread that sentence? It's in about the center part of the presentation. Something about the BESE staff. I didn't get the whole sentence.
I don't see any.
Policy.
Oh, the request for information.
Oh,
Madam Chair.
Requested information.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Okay. We could get a copy of that too, couldn't we?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Bayard is requesting a copy of your report. Ms. Seiler, will you provide a copy to all board members? Okay, you have. Okay.
Personal privilege.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you very much. I see a former member of this board sitting in the audience. Ms. McDaniel, I do see you. I just want you to know that I did see you. Don't know why you're here, but I see you.
Ms. McDaniel, would you like to stand and wave to the board? Nice to see you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Now we move, as with Ms. Tyler's request, to Ms. Fenderly and Ms. Hunt, and they will give us further detail on the findings.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Tyler. We did take a lot of great care to research the allegations that have been made and have tried to do so to the best of our ability with integrity, to try to be as objective and as fair as possible in pouring through all of the relevant documents that are associated with any allegations that have come to our attention. And we did present a report with the findings to date to Superintendent Tyler, which is the basis for her recommendation today. Obviously, there is detail to support each of those findings, and I believe that information has been included in your packets in the way of several exhibits. So we would be happy to go through any of those with you. If you have questions, as Ms. Frill stated earlier, some of that may be subject to executive session. So, you know, as we provide any detail, I'm sure she and Ms. Hunt will be advising all of us if there is something that we need to address in executive session. But I did want to bring to your attention one additional issue that has come to our attention, in addition to the findings that Superintendent Tyler just mentioned, and that is pertaining to facilities. The Recovery School District had conducted an inspection of the Abramson facilities in May and noted several things, at least a dozen items that were in need of attention or correction. Some of those required immediate correction because they did present very big safety issues to the students and the staff there at the school. Others, the school was given a couple of weeks to address. The Recovery School District staff went back out to the campus in June and noted that many of those items remain unresolved. They had not been corrected. And this morning it came to our attention that yet a third inspection was done of the school last week, and there are still many issues that have not been resolved and many safety issues that have not been corrected that we feel also presents a threat to the safety, health, and welfare of students. So we have copies of that documentation, and I will give that to staff to hand out to you, and we'd be happy to share a copy with Abramson and their council as well. So with that, I guess I'll wrap up my comments for now and just let you know that we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. This has been a long process for all of us, one that we take very seriously, and we've taken this investigation very seriously. And as I mentioned, have tried to the best of our ability to be objective and independent, and at the heart of this whole thing, to try to make recommendations and to bring forward facts that we feel could be useful in determining what's best at the end of the day for children who attend this school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bensley. 1 second, Mr. Garvey. Ms. Hunt, do you have any comments?
I have nothing to add, but I'll answer any questions you may have.
Okay, so at this point, board members, the staff, the investigation team and staff are available to answer any specific questions to Ms. Tyler's report or to the findings. Mr. Garvey.
Yes, I think this is a question for Ms. Hunt. If we go into executive session, will we be able to get some of the details about these safety issues?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garvey. Any other questions at this moment? Yes. Okay, Ms. Johnson, and then Ms. Gibbons. Ms. Johnson.
I think Ms. Tyler said, but I'm not sure, that this is an ongoing investigation. Okay.
Can you expand on that, please?
Yes. The preliminary findings that were brought to your attention today are those that really center around items that we have uncovered in the investigation thus far that pertain to the safety, health, and welfare of students. Obviously, that was our primary concern, and we felt like those types of allegations and those facts should be given our attention first. But as Superintendent Tyler mentioned, other allegations resulted in referrals being made to other agencies who have their own established processes for reviewing information. And so we do consider that the investigation is ongoing, not only for the items that have been referred to other agencies, but other items that our office is continuing to investigate as well that do not necessarily relate directly to the safety, health, and welfare of students, but are still worthy of investigation.
Thank you. I'll have a question concerning this in executive session.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Gibbons.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I'd like to find out, as a matter of process, what the Joan, and I guess this is a Joan question, what the steps in the revocation process entail. So that everybody is clear. I think I know what they are, but I'd like for the general audience to understand.
And Ms. Hunt,
what's
if you will, for the sake of the audience, we have a large audience here, bring the mic close to you and use your teacher voice.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Joan Hunt, Executive Counsel for the Department of Education. And in the charter school contract that was entered into between BESE and the Pelican Foundation for the operation of the school at Abramson, it provides that the school shall comply with all applicable federal and state laws concerning student health, safety, and health. I think and welfare. Ms. Tyler already mentioned that. But also, in that contract, it says that the contract may be terminated immediately and the charter revoked if BESE determines that the health, safety, or welfare of students is threatened. So this is a different, it's not the usual revocation process of giving notice and making a recommendation. This is a process that if you as a body determine that the health, safety, and welfare of the children at Abramson is threatened, you can have the authority to immediately revoke, to terminate the contract and immediately revoke the charter. That's what was agreed to. It's in Bulletin 126 in the BESE Bulletin, y'all's bulletin, and it is also in the charter contract, which I'll entered into with Pelican.
One more question, if you.
Let me let Ms. Gibbons, are you finished with your questioning? Okay, then Ms. Johnson.
One additional question. What is considered timely? When something is reported, what is considered timely?
In what context?
Well, I don't know how far we can go with this. The information that I received from the TP through a records request that they had a date of May 5th, 2010 on it.
That for what?
For some of the things that's in the report.
Wait, I don't think could you restate the question?
I'm trying to understand the timeliness of when we take appropriate action. I got a young person from the TP called me and was asking me certain questions to which I had no knowledge. This young person had done a records request and had certain records that I asked him to send to me, which he did. One of the dates on the record is May 5th, 2010, and it has to do with some of the things that's in this particular report.
I think some of this we're probably going to have to discuss in executive session, but I can tell you that, there are things that may have happened. Well, there's nothing in our recommendation, I don't think, that occurred. The incidents we're talking about occurred earlier this year in the spring. So I'm not quite sure the incident we're talking about. You'd have to get more information from you, and I'm not sure.
I'll give it to you. I got the information that he sent.
Okay. But obviously, y'all can't act on information until you receive it, and likewise with us. Until we have knowledge of an incident, we can't act on it, and until you guys have knowledge of an incident, you can't act upon it.
Ms. Johnson, does that complete your questions? Any other board members at this time have questions for Ms. Hunt or Ms. Venderly or the superintendent? Okay. I'm not seeing any, so the chair would entertain a motion to receive the report.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey. Is there a second? Second. Second by Ms. Buquet. Any objection to receiving the report? Hearing none, motion carries. Now we move into the public comment portion of the meeting. We have, board members and audience, we have a substantial number of public comments. It has always been this board's practice to attempt to allow everyone who wants an opportunity to present to the board to do so. We are going to set a limit of 2 minutes for your public comments, and we are going to begin with Andrew Lee. He shows as representative for Pelican and Abramson.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board.
And I'm actually, Mr. Lee, are you speaking on behalf of the school, as a representative of the school?
Yes.
We can, if you need more than 2 minutes, please let me know.
May, if you would indulge me, because there's a lot, and I hope not to over.
Okay, but no, since you're the first speaker, we'll try some leniency.
Thank you.
Please begin.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Lee. I'm an attorney with Jones Walker Law Firm, and along with Ben Slater of Lindley Kelleher Law Firm, I have the honor of representing Abramson School and Pelican Educational Foundation, the holder of the charter that you all are meeting about and very seriously considering today. The reason that I'm asked to speak first is to do a few things, and before I begin, I'd like to allow an assistant to pass out the exhibits that we are proposing that you all review as well. And we have 10 or so.
And Mr. Lee, are these the same documents that were provided to the board yesterday afternoon? And Ms. Posniak forwarded to BESE members by email. So BESE members, if you received an email with a large attachment yesterday evening, that is which you received last night. This is the hard copy of it, just so that these are the same documents. Yes, and Ms. Crew.
Mr. Lee, it's my understanding that representatives of the charter school hand-delivered a set of those documents to my office at the Attorney General building and indicated to the first assistant that information in there was not totally redacted. Just want to make sure that you're aware of FERPA and other laws and that you've taken that into consideration.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up. Before we could redact, that delivery took place. These are redacted. So the names and identities of the children are indeed redacted from these reports. For example, one of the exhibits compiles a number of affidavits from parents, many of whom are here today, and their children's names are redacted. So we took care to do that in these documents that we asked to be put into the public record. Okay. Now, what I have, Madam President, is 5 sets with a complete set. There's one exhibit we only got late last night, and I'll explain that we don't have 5, or we don't have the additional set. So is there a way you would like me to do this?
I'm going to let our staff decide who gets the 5. Those are complete sets. Okay. Okay. Well, then go ahead and distribute those to the board. And it's noted that the BESE staff has a complete copy, and we'll be receiving an almost complete copy and then a separate document. Those are complete. They go to recorder. Yeah.
And Madam President, I have no comment cards. I'm sorry. Folks that filled out cards with no comment.
And for those of you who completed a card and indicated whether you support or oppose, just for your benefit, this will be part of the record of this meeting, and so just wanted you to know that your comments will be recorded and your positions on this issue will also be recorded. Thank you.
And for the record, I'd like to describe what's in the packets that are being passed out, if you don't mind, Madam President. What we have provided to you all for your review and serious consideration is a memorandum that was prepared and finalized yesterday that responds to each and every count of Ms. Tyler's memorandum that she just presented to you all and that you all accepted. That memorandum was only prepared and finalized yesterday because we only had the benefit of Ms. Tyler's memorandum on Saturday evening, and then we commenced our investigation. That's the description of Exhibit Number 1. Exhibit Number 2 is a companion exhibit to that exhibit. It is a copy of Ms. Tyler's memorandum with a notation to connect the specific allegations to our response, which is Exhibit 1. And we have tried to make Exhibit 1 as complete as possible so that you can follow our comments. Exhibit 3 is an excerpt of the charter contract that you've heard several things said about that contains those provisions that questions were asked about. Exhibit 4 is an excerpt of the Louisiana Administrative Code Title 28, Section 1703, that concerns revocation proceedings. Exhibit 5 is a collection of affidavits from, and these are sworn statements, from Abramson supporters, mostly parents, also faculty members, and a number of adult children. We did not present minor children's statements, if at all possible. So these are sworn and verified. We have several others that we were unable to bring because they were only collected over the last yesterday evening. Exhibit 6, which is added on, is an affidavit of one of the teachers involved. I'm not going to identify for the record by name. I understood the chair to say that the teachers' names would not be included. That addresses the specific allegations that have been brought out by the staff and by Ms. Tyler. Exhibit 6 of that particular individual, I should mention, he was not interviewed by the staff, not asked to be interviewed. Exhibit 7 is another person who was on the faculty who was involved or had an involvement in one of these incidents. A paraprofessional is her identification in the report. She was not interviewed. No request was made to interview this person. Exhibit 8 is another affidavit. This is of a special education specialist. And again, I won't say her name, although she roams between classes and has been an educator for 17 years. Again, not interviewed. So we provided that affidavit, which we only collected yesterday. And then Exhibit 9 in the 5 that we had a complete set of is a copy of the police report received just last night, the one-page police report from the New Orleans Police Department, which concerns one of these incidents that concerns the first item on Ms. Tyler's report. And I will describe it to get past this issue, since not all of you have this exhibit. It is one page. It's not a full police report. The police have explained to us, and they took quite a long time to respond to our public records request to receive this. They've explained to us that the notation, the acronym on the first page, NAT, stands for no action taken. That's the incident involving the two lower school students where the suggestion was made that there was inadequate investigation. In fact, the police were called out. The police then called out the Department of Child and Family Services, which conducted an investigation. That department would not share with our administration the results. Naturally, it's private and confidential, so we cannot provide that. So that's the description of the exhibits. Now, yes?
Can you go back to what you said, private and confidential? What are you referring to?
The DCFS, we asked, the administration asked the DCFS to give us the results of the investigation that they conducted. The specific date is March 3rd of 2011 with respect to the youngest students involved. And they responded that those records are confidential and they would not share them with our administration.
Thank you.
So that's, in other words, the course of investigation of that incident was teacher, brought in administrator, brought in NOPD. You have the report from NOPD, no action taken. Brought in DCFS. They said this is a child family services issue. DCFS commenced the investigation, and we don't have a report of that because they will not naturally share that with us. The child, one of the children involved, was withdrawn from the school and is no longer at Abramson. Now, if I could get to the substance of the comments, I know it took a long time to get to here.
Go ahead.
Madam President, after receiving the memorandum that you all just received on Saturday evening, we commenced a very active investigation. Now, we've only had 3 days, but in the course of those 3 days, we have interviewed not only the 3 individuals that the staff interviewed the DOE staff interviewed that are on our faculty, but also many of these people that the staff chose not to interview, did not ask to interview, did not seek to sit down with and talk to about whether these incidents truly happened. And to get this out of the way early, I will tell you that in the case of the kindergarten students, it was a allegation of sexual misconduct that apparently did happen. Now, was the staff involved, the staff of the school involved? Absolutely not. There has been a misconception portrayed in the media that there has been adult involvement in that event. That is absolutely false, and I believe that we should lay that aside right now. I don't suggest that the staff of this organization has made that suggestion. I'm just trying to dispense with it. However, it took place in a private closet, and the teacher, upon discovering it, called out the administration, who called out NOPD, who called out DCFS. They did everything appropriately and by the book, and it is fully and completely documented. Now, was there a failing by the teacher to allow 2 children into a storage closet unsupervised? Possibly. Where is that teacher now? She was terminated. She was a Teach for America Corps teacher. and she was terminated not only by Abramson School, but also by Teach for America Corps. She was deemed unfit to continue with their program. Did the administration do everything correctly? Yes, they did. With regard to the other incident involving the upper grade student, the upper grade student, who was detailed in Ms. Tyler's report, made two accusations. One was of consensual sexual activity, and one was of a non-consensual activity. Both of those accusations were fully investigated and deemed to be completely false. And without going into any detail, I urge you to read Exhibit 6 before you make any decision. That is of the teacher who had custody and care of that child on the date in question, April 7 of 2011, and testifies under oath in a sworn affidavit that that child was, in fact, in his eyesight, in his line of sight the entire time during the time that she claimed that the incident occurred. I'm only giving you all a summary of our refutation of these allegations in Ms. Tyler's report because I don't want to take up too much of your time, and there are many people here. But our Exhibit 1 is as thorough as we could make it in 3 days' time. We addressed every single one of these allegations, every single one of these accusations in Ms. Tyler's report that has been accepted. And in every instance, we have provided you both with the sworn verification that, in fact, the findings by the superintendent were incorrect, and with the records of the school that confirm that. But I would like to highlight one small item that is on the first page of Ms. Tyler's report, and I should not characterize it as small because I believe that it is very important to note that Ms. Tyler's report on page 1 states that the investigation commenced on July 14, 2011. July 14, 2011. On agenda item 10 that you all just ratified the president's decision to suspend the school, that suspension took place on July 15th of 2011. There were no interviews conducted on July 14th of Abramson administration or staff. None. Those interviews took place a little over a week ago, Monday, July 22nd, I believe. So the investigation commenced on the 14th. The suspension took place on the 15th. That was the first that Abramson knew that they needed to respond, but they didn't know what to respond to because the suspension letter did not make that clear. That's the only summary I will give you because I believe that the detail in our response document, Exhibit 1, really needs to be looked at with care. This is a very, very important and serious decision. And if we could have provided you to that sooner than yesterday afternoon, we would have, I assure you. These interviews that we conducted took place on Sunday, on Monday, and on Tuesday. We did not have the benefit of the week's time that the staff prepared their recommendation to you all. We had 2.5 days to get it to you all, and we provided it to you as expeditiously as we possibly could.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. And,
I have a question.
thank you.
Madam
We
Chair,
are.
point of order.
One second, Ms. Givens. Mr. Bayard and board, do you have a question for Mr. Lee? Okay, Mr. Bayard and then Ms. Givens.
Sir, I'm assuming you were involved in the filing of the injunction request?
I'm not of counsel in that. Mr. Slater is, but I'm familiar with it.
Well, this is a governmental body, and have you ever heard of a judge allowing someone to stop a governmental body in a constitutional?
Mr. Bayard,
I know.
I need to throw the card. We're not allowed to speak.
Well, my point is, thank God the judge ruled in favor.
Mr. Bayard.
Well, but is that an out-of-line question?
I guess not. Go ahead.
Ms. Dastude, I'd like to refer this to our legal counsel. Can I?
Okay. Are you making a question, or are you just?
It's a question. I won't make a statement. I'll just have a question.
Okay, if it's about the law, I'll prefer that it be resolved in executive session.
Cool. Okay, that's fine. Let's go to the next. In Exhibit 6, you talked about the accusation of I'm assuming the young lady.
That is correct.
Okay, is she a minor?
The accusation, I didn't talk about it, the affiant.
I couldn't quite find it that quickly, but I'm assuming she's a minor?
She is a minor.
That was reported to the authorities?
Yes, it was.
It was. But the authorities haven't done any investigation. You were doing your own investigation?
No, sir. The NOPD did come out and investigate and determine that there was no case.
Okay, because you kept talking about we were interviewing, and I was just wondering if that was you independent of the authorities or you and the authorities.
Mr. Bayard, we as legal counsel were hired to conduct an internal investigation after Ms. Tyler's memo came out on Saturday. So for the last 3 days, we have conducted an internal investigation in order to respond to these. But at the time of the incident, that Ms. Tyler states in her memorandum and recommendation should result in revocation of the charter. At that time, NOPD was called out, did conduct an investigation, and did determine that there was no case. And in fact, Exhibit 6 of the teacher testifies as to being questioned by NOPD.
Okay. And that was immediately everything was immediately reported to the department?
To the police department?
Department of Education.
The Department of Education. I do not know that it was reported to the Department of Education that the police were called out for the incident.
To me, that's important. That's why I made the statement.
Well, if I could respond to that, what happened in that instance was that the individual made the accusation of non-consensual sex the day after her mother came with her. The administration asked, first of all, she claimed it happened in the first period. She went through the rest of the day. The administration asked for a medical report from the mother. The mother never produced a medical report. And at that point, well, even before that, NOPD was called out, did an investigation. I'm not aware of regulation that requires that be reported to the DOE.
All right. Well, I just also want to say that we're the governing body for that school. And we're very concerned about things of this nature. That's the reason for the meeting.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
And may I address one thing?
I've been very indulgent.
I understand.
You have
With regard to Exhibit 2, because I do need to respond to the suggestion that the contract allows for immediate revocation. That was stated several times. I ask you to look at our Exhibit 2, which is an excerpt of the charter contract, and it specifically excerpts the charter contract provision that states that Exhibit I to the charter contract is incorporated into this agreement. That's at Section 2.12. And if you go to Exhibit I, which is the last, and on the last page of Exhibit 3, I'm on Exhibit 3 right now, I might have misspoken. If you go to the last page of Exhibit 3, Exhibit I, incorporated into the agreement, at the last paragraph says, in all circumstances of revocation, the board shall follow the requirements of the Louisiana Charter School Law and its charter school contract, including all due process requirements regarding the processes required for revocation, extension, non-extension, renewal, and non-renewal. That's in the contract, and we urge that the board provide fairness and due process to Pelican and Abramson School.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Yes, Ms. Krill has a question, and so while you're at the table, I'm going to allow her to ask that
Absolutely.
Just in the interest of the efficiency of the board, Mr. Lee, are you aware that a week from Monday, in the presence of council, administrators told the investigative team for DOE and BESE that when there was the alleged rape, no administrator talked to the victim's teacher? That was stated. What we're hearing today, this affidavit, is completely new.
Are you asking me whether I was aware of the interview conducted a week ago Monday? I was not present for that. I have seen notes attached to Ms. Tyler's report, and I have not seen that in the notes. I'm sure that you could point it out to me. But to the extent that that was the impression that the staff brought away from that meeting, that is not true. And in fact, I'm sorry, I can't say his name, states specifically that he was questioned by the administrators. So there might have been some confusion during your interview of the administrators.
Ms. Hunt, would you please come to the table? Since you were at that meeting on the 6th with the school's legal advisors. I mean, I think board members, you're aware that upon the commencement of the investigation that the school had a law firm representing them, and so there was work ongoing from the point of investigation notification, and then this new firms, as Mr. Lee has stated, has only been engaged for just a few days. Okay. Ms. Hunt.
And I'd also like to say that the attorneys that were representing them at the time we made a request in writing the department and BESE to provide us with any documentation relative to complaints concerning the safety, health, and welfare of students, any investigations conducted in response to those complaints, and any actions taken. And that was done on July 20th. On July 22nd, we received from their then attorneys a set of documents, which y'all have, and were told that that was the only documents that were responsive to our request, other than the records on the student, which allegedly had been stolen from their office and were thus no longer available, and that we were given all the records. We again asked on July 26th for some additional information. We asked on, well, I got them out of order. On July 25th, we asked for everyone to be present at that meeting on the 22nd that we needed to talk to that was involved in the investigation, and there were 3 people present there at that time. On July 26th, we asked for additional information. On July 27th, we asked for additional information, including personnel records, so we could make determinations such as why any particular teachers were terminated, so we would have that information. That was not and still has not, as of date, been provided to us. We asked for visitors' logs. Those were provided to us, but contradicted many of the things that were said about people being there. When Mr. Slater informed us that he was now representing Pelican Foundation, we reiterated our request to him and asked for the same documentations, and we have not received them to date.
Does the contract require that the school provide?
The contract requires that if BESE or the department or the legislative auditor or law enforcement requests documentation of Pelican or Abramson, it's to be provided to us within 3 days. Our first request was on July 20th.
And I will note that these affidavits are dated yesterday, correct?
Correct, and they had not been provided to us prior to today's meeting in spite of our request for such records.
Okay.
May I respond to the issue of the records request that Ms. Hunt has made? We are aware of only a July 26th request that is still outstanding. She mentioned that she received a response to the July 20th request. We were only hired, both Mr. Slater and myself, on July 27th. We are compiling documents in response to requests, and in fact, provided some of those documents on Monday night at 10 o'clock p.m. as Ms. Hunt sent it personally, directly to Ms. Hunt with some of those documents. The personnel records, for example, contain Social Security numbers, et cetera, that have been redacted. Those will be provided this afternoon. This is an ongoing investigation. If it is ongoing, then taking a drastic action such as revocation pending the receipt of information does not comply with due process, with all due respect.
Thank you. Any other questions at this point for?
Madam,
yeah, Ms. Gibbons, I think you want to do a personal privilege.
Yeah.
Okay, well let me finish the matter. Do you have a question for these members? Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Lee, go back and repeat to me, if you will, the timing concerning when you began representing the school, and also could you, if possible, tell me whether or not you have received any requested documents from the preceding law firm. I think I'd like to know what the transition between that law firm and your firm has been, if you're able to tell us that.
I am, to some extent. Thank you, Ms. Gibbons. We were retained on Friday morning, July 28th. We went straight to work. We received some of the materials from the preceding law firm. We have not received all of them. We have endeavored to work primarily on internal investigation and responding to the discovery, the requests over the weekend. We provided some of those documents on Monday and asked for a confidentiality around some of the other documents and did not get a response directly from Ms. Hunt. But she and I have, I've told her I'm available to talk about that today, and we'll endeavor to give as much as we can this afternoon. We only so many people. We investigated all weekend and are gathering documents all weekend. These folks behind me, many of them have been involved. The administrators have been involved. There is no reticence to provide these reports or these documents because they contain something wrong. That's not the case.
And might legal counsel have advised the school, if they received requests for any presentations, to give that information to them and that they would handle the process?
Yes, ma'am. And yesterday, Ms. Friel responded to the request that we sign a protective order by telling them that we didn't need to do that, and I reiterated that this morning, that we're bound by the same confidentialities regarding FERPA and
That
so
wasn't
on.
my question, Joan.
I'm sorry.
No, what I'm asking him is, as counsel, would he have, would the previous counsel have advised their client not to provide records directly to you, but to give them to the counsel, and then the counsel would provide them to you? So what I'm trying to figure out, is it perhaps possible that you made a request while this school was represented by somebody else? They gave that to the documents. I'm trying to find out what the documents are.
That is, I'm sorry, did you?
I have an email that dated the 27th asking for these records, and another one dated the 30th.
And that's
to
why I'm
Mr.
asking
Slater.
Mr. Lee to answer me.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Your Honor, I'm sorry, Ms. Gibbons. Sounds like
As always, that's my career path, you know.
There you go. The formal July 26th records request went to prior counsel, 6 o'clock in the evening on Wednesday, July 27th. We were hired July 29th. I think Mr. Slater might have been hired, 28th rather, the morning of the Friday. So I messed up. July 26th, records request formally asked of Adams and Reese, the prior counsel, 6 o'clock in the evening. We provided some of those documents on Monday. We responded, I think Mr. Slater responded on Saturday to Ms. Hunt saying, we just got involved. We're going to get these to you as quickly as possible. That was Saturday. And believe me, we are doing everything possible. We're talking about boxes and boxes of documents. When they asked for every single personnel record for 3 years' time, they asked for every single grade record of every student. The school has 600 students for the last academic year, every grade record. And a lot of this, I'm not sure what the importance is to the investigation. We aren't asking those questions. But we are talking about a voluminous amount of material, which I presume, given that they are in Baton Rouge, they want us to drive to Baton Rouge with, and we're in New Orleans East, which we could do. In some instances, we can email it. But when we're talking about volumes and volumes of material, these have to be processed. 3 days is a very short amount of time, particularly when we weren't even retained until the third day.
So some of this may be somewhere between law firms.
No, we have it now. I can provide almost all of it this afternoon. I had yesterday 2 staff members redacting Social Security numbers and medical records. FERPA does not cover medical records of individual personnel, and it's our requirements under HIPAA to redact that information, and we were not about to let that out. So they wanted every teacher's record. Well, some of those have medical absence forms. They have to be reviewed in order to be redacted. It takes a certain period of time. So I would suggest then push and resist the accusation that we have been sloth in providing this to the board.
Okay, thank
And
you.
that's, I think, why, and that is why I'm asking the question, because I want to be sure that you just didn't respond, that there's a logical reason.
And I can assure you we responded on Saturday saying we needed more time. We provided some material on Monday and asked for confidentiality around certain of these materials. I did not receive Ms. Friel's email yesterday that I'm aware of. It might have gone to my co-counsel. And I was informed that we got an email from her yesterday. But in any event, in the grand scheme of this important decision, I don't think that the decision should be made based upon lawyers' inability to move as quickly as the staff would like us to move.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Ms. Gibbons' question sufficiently answered. Ms. Krill has a question before you get up, please. Ms. Hunt.
Do I get my point now?
Just a moment. We're going to finish this portion of the discussion.
I don't think it's been stated, but what prompted that request for any and all complaints dealing with personnel was in conversation with the attorneys last week when we directly asked if there were other complaints, and they indicated to us, yes, there are personnel complaints. And doing the due diligence, DOE was required to ask for those documents, and being that council was aware that they existed, we were in hopes of having that before the meeting today. But I just have one other question. With regard to the break-in, was there a lock on the filing cabinet where the files were taken? And was the lock broken?
There were several break-ins, the answer, though, is I don't know. I don't know whether the filing cabinet specifically has a lock or whether that file might have been outside of the filing cabinet. I do not know the answer to that.
Do you know who the board could ask that question of?
I believe if you're talking about the the theft of the accuser's record, the middle school accuser's record, then the file is of one of the counselors. And that's one of the people that you did interview last week, a week ago Monday, and I believe you asked her about the break-in at that time.
Actually, they told us there were 2 break-ins. They said there was a file in the administrative building that was allegedly stolen 1 month, although they didn't realize it until right before we met with them that that's what was missing, and that the other break-in was a month later in the counselor's office, and again, they didn't realize that this particular student's file was missing until right before they met with us.
Well, this is a modular facility. These are modular buildings. It's not a highly secure facility. And the suggestion that the break-ins have been made up, and that's in the report, is frankly insulting to these professionals.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to, Ms. Gibbons, would you like a point of personal privilege?
Thank you, Madam President. In the middle of the discussion, Senator Cynthia Willett Lewis walked into the room, and I'd like to recognize her. She's back there. She's short, but I saw her. She represents the district in which Abramson School is located, and I'd like, as a matter of privilege, Madam President, if we could give her copies of the information that the board is receiving, because her office has been inundated with calls from parents, as you can well imagine, concerning what's happening here today, as well as what's going to happen in the future, and I think it might help her to better serve our community.
We can certainly do that. Everything that we have today is posted online on the BESE website, but we can provide a hard copy of everything that the board has been made available for this meeting to the senator. Thank you, Ms. Gibbons.
Thank you, Madam
Okay,
President.
we're going to go on to the...
No substance. I just want to offer that my co-counsel and I are available to the board if you go into executive sessions and have questions about the specific confidential sensitive issues.
Okay, we appreciate that. Thank you very much. We go to the next speaker, and it's Mr. Eugene Kennedy. Is he in the audience? You didn't know you'd be second, did you?
Madam President, before Dr. Kennedy comes to
Ms. Gibbons,
the table, let me ask, I'm still in a matter of process, and Dr. Kennedy, it has nothing to do with you walking that way. I know Doctor. I can say that. I know him. I know Dr. Kennedy, so I can direct him a little bit. My husband used to tell me that whenever that finger starts moving, he was in trouble. But anyway, are we going to hear from all of the people now who have comment cards?
Yes, ma'am. I have every
All right.
intention of allowing everyone who wants the opportunity to speak.
And then, so we're going to do that. Are we breaking for lunch at any time? I need to call y'all, but I have a job, and I need to report back to let people know what time.
I'm not sure if you were here when I laid out how we would proceed through this item.
Please do it again.
I'm happy to. I think you were here for the superintendent's report and findings and recommendation, and the board members were allowed to ask questions of the investigative team. Then now we're going to go through all of the public comments. Frankly, I'm not thinking about lunch, but we can set a time. I'll have staff recommend for a break. Once we have heard all the public comments, then the board, if it chooses to go into executive session to discuss these matters that are considered confidential, then the board will vote to go into executive session. We'll also vote on who, will join us in executive session. We have the option to come back if we want and ask someone else to come into executive session. But everything is voted on by a 2/3 majority of the board, both who will attend the executive session and whether or not we will go into one. So the board will determine, how we proceed through these public comments, and the board will make the ultimate decision on the school.
Thank you, Madam President.
I didn't call you up.
Who is he?
I'm sorry.
My assistant.
Yes, I know.
And in connection with Dr. Kennedy's statement, because we are limited by time, a number of the statistics regarding the success of the school that he intends to address are incorporated in this.
And please bring them forward. Yes, absolutely, Mr. Slater. Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Ms. Johnson.
Okay, I'm getting a little confused. So we have Ms. Tyler's, because I would assume that there are a lot of people who want to talk.
Yes, there are about 20, 25.
Okay, so what are they talking on?
They're talking on this item, agenda item 11.
They're talking on her report that she's made to us?
No, if you read the agenda item number 11.
I keep reading it now.
Well, they can speak, that's really why the agenda is structured that way. They can speak to the findings and the recommendation. We are talking today about, that is the scope of the conversation today, which we've been advised is appropriate.
I understand that.
Is there something else that you?
Well, I'm just trying to understand, I'm trying to get to the point of when it is incumbent upon us to do something the relevant, and I guess I'm missing that.
Okay. Ms. Johnson, it's my belief that we should not make a decision until we have heard from people who want the opportunity to address the board.
Look, I'm black. You know, I want people to talk. That's not an issue. I'm just trying to make sure that I understand what we're doing in terms of process here.
Okay, well, when the board, after executive session.
That Ms. Tyler gave that we received.
Right.
In her final or in the paper, because I don't even know if she said it, the headline said that we were going to take action to revoke. But now we're listening to, and there's no reflection on anybody in the audience, but we're listening to people who have, I guess, opinions about whether they stay open or get closed, and I'm just getting confused.
No, Ms. Johnson, I'm not sure. The board, Ms. Superintendent Tyler has made a recommendation for revocation of the charter of the school, immediate revocation due to the health, safety, and welfare of the students. It is my intention and my hopes that this board, after they have completed listening to the public comment and they've had an opportunity, if they choose so, to go into executive session, to come forth with a motion and for the board to take action. So there is, the board is well within its process, going to be expected, I believe that's why people are here, to take some action today. And they will come forward in a motion. And Ms. Superintendent Tyler has made a recommendation for revocation. Ms. Tyler.
Madam President, my recommendation doesn't have anything to do with closing the school. It is the revoking of the revocation of the charter.
Thanks for that clarification. Okay. Mr. Kennedy. Yes, Ms. Gibbons.
I'm looking for, is Ms. Ford here? Nina Ford? Oh, there you are. I need some guidance because I'd like to ask you if it's at all possible to get me a set of records relating to the last time we did a revocation hearing, because I have some process concerns and I'm not hearing you right now.
Ms. Gibbons, this is not a hearing. This is a special call board meeting.
Well, okay, a special call board meeting to revoke a charter. I still want to know, what did we do the last time we had this situation, because I'm not sure that we're doing what we did before.
Ms. Gibbons, I would have to research to see if the board has in fact revoked a previous charter. I think it has.
We didn't vote to revoke it, but it involved Milestone Sabbath. In fact, we had the hearing.
I'm sorry, say again?
Milestone Sabbath. Okay. And we had the hearing in this room. And if my memory is correct, it was happening somewhere around 2007. So some of the board members that are newer than some of us who have been here a while were not party to that action. But you were, Madam President.
Ms. Gibbons, yes, but my memory's not as sharp as yours. But the Deputy Superintendent of the Office of Parental Options is here, and I think can answer your question. And then we're going to have this question, and then I'm going to insist that we get through this public comment and these kind of questions. Go on. That we need to move on. But you need to ask a question?
When she's finished.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. According to our records, there have been 2 previous revocations of charter schools, both Type 2 charter schools, one in 1998 and one in 1999.
This was not a revocation.
I understand.
It was a hearing to revoke, and I want to know about the process at that time.
You're correct. And at that time, my understanding is that revocation was considered, but ultimately not approved. but we would be happy to work along with board staff to pull those records so that you can have an opportunity to review the process that was used.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Garvey.
Yes, I had a question about Ms. Tyler's comment just a second ago. I understand you correctly that if this board were to vote to accept your recommendation to revoke the charter of the school, this school will still be open to teach these students in August of this year?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's, thank you, Mr. Garvey. Thank you. Let's move on to Mr. Kennedy.
Good morning.
Dr. Kennedy. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam President and the board, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am a member of the Pelican Educational Foundation. I also happen to be on the faculty at Louisiana State University, although I'm not here speaking in that capacity. My area is educational research, and I've been involved in researching policies here in Louisiana and other states in the Southeast now for some 20, 25, 30 years. I can't tell you how many school systems I've been in, how many schools I've been in an evaluation capacity in the various programs that have been approved. And so I share that with you to point out that, in fact, I know a good deal about what makes schools work and work effectively. I've written research that extensively over the years. My other board members are also largely university faculty.
Excuse me, Dr. Kennedy, would you get closer to
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better? I'll use my teacher voice. My other board members are also largely university faculty. And the reason that we're involved in running the school, and again I emphasize this is a nonprofit, is that because we do care. We care that the kids in this state have a quality education, especially and in particular in the STEM disciplines. STEM stands for science, technology, education, and engineering and mathematics. And as the foundation itself was created, the board underwent a process in which they searched around to identify programs that actually worked. I became involved because after visiting Abramson, and again, in many respects I do this for a living, and I have taught many of the staff members that currently work at the Department of Education the kinds of research methods that they've utilized. I realized that there was something different. And in fact, of all the hundreds of programs, millions of dollars that I've engaged at various points in time, there was something here that seemed to actually work. The quality of the education that these kids was provided was something unique, and wasn't something that they had an opportunity for in other settings. And I point that out to say this, and the data clearly supports that, and the documents that we've shown you show, in fact, I like to term a causal effect, trends prior to Pelican taking over this school that were all negative, and very obvious and very distinct trends on a number of indicators, not just test scores, that were absolutely and unquestionably positive following the Pelican takeover. And in fact, that's why these people are here, because what they realize is that they have a quality of education now that they did not have access to before. And in fact, I disagree that the school would still be open if you remove the governing board and the management company. That simply is not how schools function. As a matter of fact, the kinds and the reasons that the school functions as it does has a lot to do with principles and things that have been applied and developed and honed over very many years in Texas and other places, and they seem to be working here. I would say to you, as you consider this action, to consider these people and think about the consequences for them. And the people in particular that I'm talking about happen to be these kids that's sitting behind me, and the ones that couldn't get here because they don't have access, that all of a sudden found that they are neck and neck with Ben Franklin. That is unreal. And it not only impacts their lives, it impacts the lives of dozens and dozens of others. I would say also that, in fact, it is impossible for a school to have the kinds of outcomes that we've seen at Abramson if the environment were, in fact, not safe, if it were not orderly, if it were not disciplined. There's literally 20, 30 years of research to suggest that. I'm certainly not an attorney, but I believe that we've collected evidence to support our position.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. I appreciate you being here today. Our next speaker is Tefix Kosar? I'm going to ask if possible to keep your comments to 2 minutes.
Good morning, dear Madam Chairman and dear members of the board. I'm Tevfik Kosar. I'm one of the founding members of Pelican Educational Foundation in 2005, and I served as the board president between 2005 and 2010. And during this period, I used to teach at LSU in computer science department, and in December 2010, I moved to University at Buffalo as an associate professor, and since then I continue my affiliation with LSU as a visiting professor. Now I continue serving as a board member, and I would like to express that the claim made by the Department of Education that the Abramson Science and Technology Charter School is not a safe and unhealthy learning environment is really not. It's not based on actual facts, but on some of allegations which are not proven. And as Dr. Kennedy pointed out, over the 4 years that we governed the school, the attendance ratio of the school increased from 82% to 97%. The dropout ratio decreased from 15% to 0. And the test score, STS scores, increased from 32 to 78 over the last 4 years. And last year, the RSD itself acknowledged our school as the charter school which showed the most improvement over the last 5 years among all RSD charter schools. So I just would like to ask to the superintendent and other members of the inspection committee how a school without a safe and unhealthy learning environment can achieve all of this.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm going to take my best shot at this. Mr. Steve Uwowski, do you know who I'm talking to? Okay. Correct me, please. Okay, thank you. Glad you're here. Please speak.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the board. I'm here today on behalf of the parents of Abramson. I can't tell you statistics, but I can tell you actual result. I have 4 kids in Abramson. As a matter of fact, my 3 daughters started. Then after a year, I had to bring in my son. My son is a 4.0 student. From his previous school, even here during the hurricane to McMain, I had to draw him from McMain to Abramson because I saw the program and I was happy with it. And I was glad to see the quality school in my community. I live in that community. Now, as a parent, I'm concerned about the allegations. If I'm not, I'm not a good, father, because when you hear these things, you're going to get concerned. But the fact is, are they true? Now, what effects do or does this have on the children? Abramson, before Katrina, cannot be compared with Abramson we have in our community today. Abramson is one of the best schools we have in our community, and we were glad to have it. If you look at the enrollment continues to increase. If you look at the results continue to increase. Now, I would ask Ms. Tyler to work with the management and the school. If they have any problem, resolve it. Don't throw away Pelican, because Pelican is an asset in our school system, in our community. I wish you had brought this discussion in New Orleans East. You would have seen a lot of parents. When I first couldn't come. Now, we are not naive. We understand the nature of the accusation. But investigation has not been completed in the first place. I'm not a lawyer, but from what I have heard here, I think it would be premature for this board to pass a resolution to take Pelican out of the system. Because without the management, it cannot get the good school. Please, we need Abramson and the management we have there. Can you work with them? These things can be fixed. These are not immediate. Our children are not in immediate danger. That's the true situation. I've been there. I go there every day. I'm so impressed. You know what we need to be talking about in Abramson today? Permanent structure in Abramson. That's what we need.
Our next speaker is Brandon Theodore.
How you doing? Yeah, my name is Brandon Theodore, and I am a recent graduate from Abramson Science Technology. I've attended the school for 4 years, all 4 years of my high school career, and I graduated recently. If this school wasn't safe, I wouldn't have stayed there 4 years. I believe that these accusations towards the school is it's really messed up, because if you think about it, would these same actions, would Benjamin Franklin be sitting here right now if these same accusations were laid upon them? Because there's schools out there right now that kids bring guns to school, kids been shot, and those schools are still open and still enrolling kids there, even though it's not a safe environment as y'all see. And when y'all say 2 5-year-olds are doing something, like, what can they possibly do? I mean, they're not, it's ridiculous. I return to fight for this school because it is a very good school for kids to grow and learn. In the paper it says something about since we went from 32 to 70, 80 in our SPS, we're cheating. And I believe that's messed up to us students that actually work for for our success that we have today. And they say that it's us cheating, and that's just a smack in the face to all of us students that work for our grades or where we at right now in our life.
I appreciate it. Our next speaker is Jacques Williams. I can pronounce Jacques because my last name is Dastug.
That's a good French name when we're in the French states, so especially New Orleans. But anyway, good morning, board. My name is Jacques Williams, and I don't have a kid that attends Abramson High School. As a matter of fact, I have a dear friend who's sitting right here to my left, and I went to visit Abramson on one specific day, and while I was talking to him, the principal of last year, Mr. Dokman, overheard our conversation, and he asked me a brief question. He said, man, I love what you're saying. I love the way that you talk. Would you be able to come and speak to the kids to motivate them because they're preparing for their IELTS, their LEADs, and all the other standardized testing? I said, I have no problem. As long as you don't limit me to what I can say, I promise you I'll leave the kids motivated. Well, anyway, I have a whole lot of friends. I'm nobody, but I have a whole lot of somebody friends. And I introduced all those somebody friends to the school, and they all fell immediately in love with it. They fell in love with the staff. They fell in love with the leaders. They fell in love with the kids because the kids were so motivated and the kids loved learning. And all we went in there to do is what most parents do with their kids. We make promises to our kids. If you attain a certain thing or you achieve a certain level in school, we promise that I have a 16-year-old, so I have to buy him a car because he's excellent at the school that he attends. But anyway, to make a long story short, I had an opportunity last year to get to know the staff, to get to know Mr. Dokman, to get to know the assistant principal, to get to know several of the teachers, and I saw a desire to teach and learn, and to teach and advance our kids like I haven't seen since I was in high school. My son would not attend a public school because I thought that the public schools were failing our kids before Katrina. Since Katrina, I've run into a school that I've fallen in love with. I will not name the school because I'm here to speak about Abramson. Anyway, when I heard the allegations like anybody else, it was problematic for me because we're talking about children. Once I was brought abreast of the situation and made, aware of what actually happened, I had developed a dogged determination to support them because I know the characters of the individuals. And so today I'm missing out on a whole lot of money because I feel as though these kids, this staff, and this Pelican agency that runs this school is worthy of a little time, because these kids that are in school now, they are the future, and they will be the kids who grow up with my son. And if my son attains all the goals that I have set for his life, he's going to be very successful, and I intend for him to be very wealthy and possibly sitting on the very board that you all sit on. If he has those things and some of these other kids don't have those things, they will eventually make him a victim because they'll desire the things that he has. But if they continue to learn on the level that they're learning, then these kids will be my son's peers. They will have things. My son will have a better society and a better environment to live in and to raise my grandchildren, which ultimately I'm concerned about the generations that are coming. Thank you very much for your time. Have a blessed day.
The next speaker is Karen Fontenot with Pelican Educational Foundation.
Thank you, Board, for giving me the opportunity to speak about the issues today. I am one of the founding members with Dr. Koshar of Pelican Educational Foundation. In 2005, he and I and a group of other university professors got together. We were concerned about education in Louisiana because we were seeing the products in our university classrooms. And we founded the charter. We got the charter for Abramson in 2007, and we are extremely proud of what has happened. I urge you today to look at the evidence that we've provided, to weigh it very carefully. You wouldn't be on this board if you weren't concerned about education and about the safety and welfare of the children. But I would point out that when Ms. Tyler says Abramson will stay open, she's wrong. If the board is not Pelican, it won't be the same Abramson that we've been talking about with the chief. I also want to point out, and this will be my last statement because I know I've only got 2 minutes and I'm a speech professor, so I take that very carefully. But I want to point out also that we don't have selective admissions. We are using the same group of students that failed prior to Pelican taking over. This is the same demographic group. This is the same population that was not served before Pelican took over Abramson and is now graduating students that are going on to college and successful and productive lives. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Donna Gilmore. And she brings her own television crew.
Good afternoon. My name is Dana Gilmore. I am the parent of one of the 5-year-olds involved in the allegation against Abramson Charter School and the Pelican Education Foundation. Until recently, I did not know there was a first incident regarding my child. No one from Abramson nor the Department of Education contacted me about this incident. It wasn't until I started the meeting and read in the newspaper that I realized that it was my child they was describing. But there was a second incident that Abramson informed me of, and then I withdrew my child out of Abramson because I was not satisfied how Abramson handled the situation. I am here today because I want to share my experience with you so that Pelican Education Foundation is prevented from operating any school. I believe that they put my child and other children in harm's way by failing to properly address the incidents involving my child. In reading your meeting packet, I now see that there was information that was not shared with me and could have led to my child getting help so desperately he needed. But instead, the administration at Abramson chose to cover up what happened, and I wrote a statement to the Department of Education, and I got no response. In keeping that critical information away from me, my child has suffered a delay in getting help. He's now kept back in kindergarten. It's my understanding that the first incident was not reported to police, social service, nor to me. If it had had been reported, there may have never been a second incident. Abramson violated state-mandated reporting laws and federal special education laws by not failing to identify my child with his disability. He is now at a different school. That school immediately started help evaluating process, and now my child is getting the services he needs and is doing much better. What happened with my child is enough reason to revoke Abramson's charter. It is clear to me that Pelican Education Foundation is not qualified to operate any school. And that's coming from a parent, and I'm a teacher and an administrator, so I know the protocol of following process. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here.
May I ask a question?
Yes, you may. Would you mind staying and considering answering a question? Okay.
And you know, I know this is very upsetting for you, and I'm very sorry that you have to be here today to make the testimony that you just had. But I heard you say that you wrote a letter to the Department of Education.
Yes, I did. And it probably didn't get to it because it didn't fall in their favor. I was asked to come to the school right after the allegations, and I wrote a letter, and the Department of Education never responded to me, so evidently they didn't get the letter.
I'm not going to assume that. Do you have a copy of the letter, and can you tell me when it was written?
It was written, I know it was a Monday. I couldn't tell you a date. I actually gave a copy to an administrator at Abramson.
How long ago? Was this recently that you wrote this letter?
After the allegations came out, they asked me to come to the school.
And this has been in the last two. Karen, can you help me with that? And they told you to come to the school.
Write a statement, and didn't fall in their favor because I wrote how I felt about the incident.
I understand that. And so then you mailed a copy to the Department of Education?
They said that they were going to, the Department of Education was supposed to be there that Monday. I never saw them. And they said they was going to hand it over to them.
All right.
Who said they were going to hand it over?
Ms. Givens, can you let
I can Ms. Bindley
You handle
answer
this.
what this lady did. I'm asking her, I'm making sure I understand what she did, because in her statement, she said she sent a letter to the Department of Education. And so I am trying to find out how she sent it.
Patrice Jones. That's what.
And if she gave it to somebody, I want to know who she gave it to.
I gave it to Patrice Jones.
Thank you. That's all I want to know, because I want to know what happened.
Ms. Givens, would you like Ms. Bindley to respond?
If Ms. Bindley knows what Ms. Yalls did with the letter, if she received it, that's all
And
she
Mr.
can tell me.
Garvey.
I can say that we did meet with Ms. Yarls. I believe it was on Monday, July 20th. I'm not sure at what point they met with Ms. Gilmore and had her write a statement, but I can tell you that, and I just checked with my staff, we do not know that we have received anything from Ms. Gilmore. So if something was supposed to be forwarded to us by the administrators at Pelican or Abramson, we do not have a record of receiving anything.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Garvey.
Can you tell me what was the date of the day when you gave this letter to Abramson?
It was a Monday, so probably it was July the 20th. You might have came after because I came that morning, but it was that Monday.
If Ms. Gilmore went to the school that morning, we met with Ms. Yarls and other administrators of the school for most of the day. They had every opportunity to give us anything that should have come to us.
That same day?
Yes, sir.
Well, have you thoroughly checked your records to make sure that letter is not in there?
We have, to my knowledge, we've gone through every piece of mail that's come to our office, and I know if we had received something with her last name, we would have recognized that immediately, and I'm not aware of anything that's been received.
Well, Abramson probably has overlooked this letter, and I'm sure that they would like to give it to us as soon as they can.
I'd like, Madam President, I'd also like to ask
Ms. Johnson, yes.
Thank you very much. I got trying to understand, if you gave the letter to somebody who didn't give it to us, then is this the incident that happened in February, or and you were just talked to about this incident in July? Are we talking about something that, because some of the data, some of the information I have references February?
The incident happened, the second incident, and from what I heard this morning, everybody know about the second incident where police was called and child protection. It was the first incident that was not reported to me.
Okay, I'm still, is the second incident a February incident?
It happened March.
Okay, so it's around, so even though you were talked to, I want to be clear that I understand what's going on here. something happened in February and in March, but you were not talked to by anybody, including the Department of Education, till July?
Of the allegation that was unreported. I only was talked to about that in July. I heard it in the media that it was unreported, and it was my child.
Okay, the second incident, were you ever talked to about it?
That's when the police was called in.
That was in February, in March.
Okay. And Ms. Johnson, there were, according to our records obtained from the school, there were more than 2 incidents.
Ms. Creel would like to comment because the parent has made an assertion that her child should have been referred to special ed services.
Absolutely.
And then when you enrolled him in his subsequent school, he was identified and referred.
Absolutely. I got help. Social workers, everything. He's doing much better.
Ms. Johnson.
But the question, excuse me.
Ms. Johnson, would you let Ms. Creel give us some guidance? Because we're moving into a bit of a gray area.
Well, I want to know if we're talking about special ed services or if he's just getting services. That's all I'm trying to find out.
Okay, would you answer that question?
Actually, it was towards the end of the school year, but we're identifying him to get some special needs services.
Thank you. Ms. Creel.
And just Ms. Johnson, just a reminder, and to all board members, because of the sensitive nature and other issues, there are some exceptions to the open meetings law that would allow you an opportunity to talk with her in executive session if the board decides that it's necessary.
We'll stay if you need us.
Thank you. And board members, anyone else have any comments? Otherwise, thank you for being here today. I know that was a very difficult thing for you to do, and we appreciate you having the courage to come here. Thank you. You have a card, and I'm going to pull it out of the stack. You have 2 cards. Mr. Garvey, and then we'll recognize Ms.
Yeah, I have a question about the facts, and before I ask it, well, I want to get the attention of our attorney to ask her about her warning about us not asking about facts. And so just pay attention to what I'm saying. Tell me if I'm doing something wrong. We just heard that the mother of one of the children involved in the first incident, as it's been described, was not notified. Do we know if the mother of the other child involved in the incident was notified?
I think we need to hear from
the first incident.
Team.
Answer.
Was neither parent or neither set of parents notified is my question.
Before we answer that, we did talk to that mom, and we do have that answer, but I don't feel comfortable unless Ms. Frill tells us that we can answer this going into this area at this time.
I would prefer that the discussion occur in executive session.
I'll withdraw the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, and we'll take that up later. Our next speaker is Karen Harper Royal.
Good morning or afternoon. I don't know what time it is. My name's Karen Harper Royal. I'm a parent of a special needs child. I'm also an advocate for parents of children with special needs. As you know, I have often come before this body and said that we are not properly evaluating these charters before we grant the charter to them. I don't know what changes have been made, but something went wrong in this process. As I help this parent and many others, it becomes very apparent to me when I meet with school staff that these people are not knowledgeable about special education law. I urge you to relook at your charter approval process and put some things in place so that they are well knowledge, so that when this comes before you to be approved, to be granted, you have a comfort level that mistakes are not made. These babies are in kindergarten. This child should not have gone unidentified. It is a failure of the child find provision of the IDEA. I'm sorry, I'm just very passionate because this breaks my heart. I understand that the parents in this room care about their schools, but we cannot reform education on the backs of our most at-risk students. At-risk students are the kids that the charter school law was written for. A child with special needs is at risk. And it doesn't matter to me if we're doing wonderful things for everybody else. If we are neglecting these children who are at risk, then it is on the backs of them. This mother moved her child. If parents don't like how they're being treated, they can choose another school, as Paul Vallis is fond of saying. That's the wrong answer when it comes to children with special needs. Our charter schools must be able to serve these children. And I urge you to please look at the process. Let's not have to go through this lawsuit. Let's take care of the lawsuit by doing what's right for children. Thank you.
Madam President?
Mr. Garvey.
Not to disagree with what you say, because I agree with, I think, could be 100% of what you just said. But to point out, and this is information for the board too, that I don't think it was lack of knowledge of special education that would be attributed to whatever it was that happened, because one of the affidavits that we got today says that the person in charge of special education at that school had a master's in special education and had worked in special education for, I think it's 18 years. So the problem may be someplace else, but I don't think it was lack of knowledge of special education rules.
Well, actually, the problem may actually be in how we monitor and oversight, and I will say lack of knowledge, because immediately if a teacher sees that there's a problem, there's a process that should be started of doing interventions and referring. And so I shudder to think that people are fully aware of what their responsibilities are and chose not to do them.
And that's my point.
Okay,
Thank you.
My concern.
Thank you.
Board members, just for an audience, we have about 15 more comment cards. That could go about another half hour. I would suggest at that point that we can break for lunch for 30 minutes, come back in and make a determination whether to go into executive session. Does that sound like a plan that's acceptable to you? Did you hear me, Ms. Johnson?
You want us to?
We would finish the public comment, break for a very brief lunch, 30 minutes, come back and reconvene this board meeting, then make a determination and vote to go into executive session.
That'll probably work, but after we hear the public comment, I will make the motion to go into executive session immediately.
But we won't be in executive session. Is that proper? We can work through lunch if you'd like to do it that way. Okay.
That just seems.
Well, then go ahead and make that motion, Ms. Johnson, after we complete public comment.
Madam Chair, I move that this board.
No, we're not ready yet.
Oh, okay. I thought you said this was.
I'll recognize you, but let's stay with the plan.
Madam President, that was exactly my point a half hour ago.
I have it. Thank you, Ms. Gibbons. Ms. McDonald, Mamie McDonald. And the next person will be Mr. Robert Roberts.
Good morning, board. My name is Mamie McDonald, and I have 3 kids that attended Aberson. I had one tenant from 2007, which graduated May the 10th of this year. She came out of honor. I have 2 more in Aberson, which honor roll students. Also have one I just pulled out of 35, McDonald 35, to bring to Aberson because she has always been an honor roll student. I felt so safe that my children in Aberson, I don't think you can find no better school. Sometimes people look at school, but sometimes they have to look at the kids, even though I know I also been into foster care. I have had some 100 children in my home. I have 5 right now, which I adopted. And these are honor roll students I'm talking about. And I know about allegations. And I know these kids have problems. And I understand, where the lady is coming from. But sometimes we have to monitor our kids as well. Because I don't think they can do it. I also do transportation service. And I'm at Valley schools all day, morning and afternoon. And I see kids in other schools walking the streets all time of day. You go to Aberson, you're not going to see this. Even if you send I send my husband sometime to pick up the children. I forgot to put his name on the pickup list. They're not going to release your child to nobody that's not on that list. And ain't nobody gonna tell me that Aberson is not safe. You cannot find a more safer school, more, I would say, the principal, the staff, you know, they are compassionate people. They love people. They love children. I got a 7 years old right here now. You can bring her right here, right now, and she'll tell you everything that goes on at Aberson. She's 2nd grade. Everybody in Aberson know her. She's a foster adopted child. So I urge you, please, look into this matter. Don't hurt the children. These kids have to go to other schools where they got to learn new peoples, new principal, and all this. These kids know these people. They able to function. They are those students. And I don't feel no other school no safer than Aberson.
Thank you very much. Mr. Roberts, and then Greg Baptiste.
Good morning. Members of the board. My name is Robert Roberts. I had sons attend Aberson before Katrina. Aberson was a terrible school. I always, or my wife, had to go there for some kind of incident or had to go and get them from school. Okay? But today, after Katrina, since the new people, Pelican has, administration has took over the reign of getting our students ready for the future. I would like to keep Pelican administration at Aberson School. The school is safe, and the students are getting a quality education. And I'd like to commend the two ladies here for being so concerned and asking the question that you asked concerning the allegations and how the process go on to see if they're going to get rid of Pelican and bring another organization. And like the lady said, this young lady here, that the school would continue to function and be open, but it wouldn't because it wouldn't have the same administration. And I really like to commend y'all for being concerned. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Greg Baptiste, and then Kristen Sylvie.
Judge and the board, good morning. My name is Dr. Greg Baptiste. I'm a resident of New Orleans East. And I had the privilege of going to Aberson before the storm with my kid, and I've seen the havoc that was going on there when it was controlled by the public school system. And I've also had the opportunity to piggyback with Brother Jock Williams on some of his adventures as far as a motivation speaker. And I've watched the energy that the children have now for education. But I don't think our problem is education right here. I think Pelican is doing a well job with education. I think the problem is safety. And you know, even in the prison system, when the prisoner gets hurt, we don't demote or take the prison system or the leaders out. We just put more enforcement, more protection in. I think our priorities are out of order. I think we need to be considering giving more protection, not removing the education system because it's working. You don't take something that works and remove it. If you take the system out, we're going to regress in our education. And I thought education was our priority here. I thought our children was the future. And if it is, then we need to be more concerned about their education. I mean, there's schools all over this city that they have incidents that happen we never hear about. This is one incident. And we're talking about moving the whole charter system because of it. And I think we need to consider all matters. I've heard the Admin Reese spoke about them doing everything they had to do for protocol. I think they followed the procedures, and I think they've done their part as far as what they could do when they took over. I just think we need to consider everything. Education is vital for our children, and I'm standing for the children.
Kristen Sylvie.
I'm just coming to talk really just to give you a standpoint from a teacher at Abramson, going on 4 years. So I've been there for a while, enough to know where I am and where I stand with the school and the administration. And I will tell you this: I've never seen as much community as I've seen at this school. Okay. Now the allegations and all of the things that were going on, that has happened, and just like the gentleman before me said, it's important to not remove the charter, to enforce different things, and that goes for all the charter schools, all the schools. I don't feel that it's fair that we've been singled out, because there's other occurrences in other schools. I've talked to parents from other schools, similar occurrences, but nobody, they're not in the news. You know what I mean? Also, in my opinion, I'm also a parent. My kids are too young to be in school yet, but I have two. And if something was happening to one, and I was so adamant about the school being a poor place or subpar for one of them, I would take them all out, not just one. I was there all year last year, and I taught some of the siblings of the children that were involved.
I would not allow these derogatory.
I'm done. I'm done with that. But I'm adamant in saying that this child needs to stay. Because if you're that adamant about it leaving, it applies to everybody.
I need you to wrap it up, please.
I'm done. Thank you.
Mustafa Abdullah, and followed by Shabir Abdullah, and then Lone Prawn.
Mustafa Shabir Abdullah, coming.
You
Sorry.
have 2 minutes. I see that.
All right, and I want you to know I appreciate my son's part of the Pelican school system. He's Kenilworth. I'm very proud of him. All the activities that he's been involved in as far as the robotic class. I always knew at 2, 3 years old he would take his toys and break them. I went to his mom. I said, something is wrong with you, dear. Every toy we got him, he breaks them. Then I began to watch him. He break them, he put them back together. For a while, I think maybe his mom or his older brother or sister was putting them back together. So now I'm raising an engineer. And when he got into Kenilworth, the engineers started to shine with him. He works with a wonderful teacher named Demir over there. And I'm proud of him. Dad, I built a robot. Dad, we won the competition. I'm going to Turkey. I'm going to Germany. And he just come back off a trip from there earlier this year. I'm so proud of him. I'm proud of the fact that he went, had his picture taken with David Vitter in Washington, D.C. I guess my point is, before the Pelican school system took over Kenilworth School here in Baton Rouge, I would not have wanted one of my kids going to school there, because it was like a zoo over there. I can tell you now that school system has changed over there. You see those people from that school, from the principal down to the teachers in the community at 9 and 10 o'clock at night, bringing robotic students home, going by and meeting the parents, in order to encourage the parents to come to the school. I always attend activities over there, and I see people at the school over there that would not normally even be involved with the school system because they feel welcome and invited there. And instead of shutting down the Pelican organization, I understand they have 2 schools, you need to give them 4 more. And I would recommend that you give them 4 schools up in North Louisiana.
I have been advised that this is a meeting on Abramson. It's not a meeting on Kenilworth. I allowed you to speak, and there's absolutely no way I can't allow your son to speak.
Okay, I understand, but
go right ahead. But then I think we need to stay on the Abramson issue, the issue before the board today. But I do appreciate you.
I appreciate you, but I was understanding the Pelican school system, so.
Yes, sir. And that's why we allowed it. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Shabir Muhammad Abdul. As you said, I'm from Kenilworth, but I can't really speak upon Abramson. But I can speak upon the Pelican Foundation. And from what I heard of Kenilworth, well, I went to different school for 6th grade, and Kenilworth was like a bad school, fights and everything. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But when Pelican Foundation came in, it completely changed it. Everything was safer. Everything was, how can I say, more fun, maybe. The teachers are great, and Pelican Foundation gave students opportunity, especially for me. me I went to Turkey, like the best place I ever been to. So really, I don't see, if you had an internet school, you have internet at every school, but cutting down the entire foundation is not needed. Because if you hurt the foundation, then you hurt the student instead of part of the foundation.
Vaughn, do you recognize who I'm asking for? And then Mike Deschatel will be next.
Before I start, I'd like to introduce myself and why I'm here. My name is Lon, and I am a recent graduate of Aberson. While I was in the car this morning, on my way here, I have a lot of emotions, and I was thinking about the people I wanted to represent. So I wrote down my thoughts and some of the comments from the parents who aren't here because they couldn't make it, and I put it all in this journal. And I couldn't express it in any other way than what I wrote down on my way here this morning to this meeting. And I do apologize if I go a little over time because I would like to express the comments of the parents who aren't here and are directly affected by your decisions, so I hope you can respect that.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Now, anyone who attend a meeting on Wednesday at the Reed Elementary School, then they could truly say that it was pointless. Many parents did not receive the answers that they were asking for. And it was a waste of their time to take their time out from their schedule to attend one of these pointless meetings. For the past 2 weeks, our educators and students like myself went from house to house to talk with parents and allowed them to express their concerns. Now, during these heart-to-heart home visits, I did wrote down some of the questions that the parents had in this journal. As I recall, many of the parents asked us, why now? Why 3 weeks before school starts? Why wasn't a private investigation? Why did the newspaper say that Abe is closing when Abe is still open and running? What did we do now? Some of our parents already brought the school uniforms and supplies. Are they going to fire everyone? Teachers, staff, administrators? And one big W, why Aberson? Honestly, I don't have the answers to any of these questions. And believe me, the answers aren't in the newspaper or media. But the answer that I could answer is why Aberson and why now. Isn't it obvious that Aberson is different? Different than any RSD schools. Why now? Well, recently, Abe has its first graduating class of 2011. And even though there were 27 seniors, out of those 27, we have a 0% dropout rate. 24 graduated, and 25 of us are accepted in college, while the other two of my fellow classmates are heading to the workforce to become a fireman and heading to the military to serve our country. So let's come back to the question, why now? Why close the school or change the board when the school is at its peak? Why now? Is it because of the alleged allegation you read in the newspaper? Or is it the opinions of those who were fired at Abe that caught your attention? Why isn't it the success of the school that is catching your attention? The reason is because Abe is different. Different in the sense that there aren't any other school around here that improve at the rate that Abe has. Before Abe was taken over, the school performance score, SPS, was only 32, which is way below average. Now the score is 78. It's very rare to see a school that improved this much in New Orleans. That's why so many people can accept this fact. Thank you.
Mr. Jessica, and then Mr. Lloyd Dressel will follow. And then Jolie Coffin.
morning. I'm Michael Dizitel. I'm a retired educator, and I'm here as a taxpayer, and I'm also here as a member of the Coalition for Louisiana Public Education. We have serious concerns about the problems and the allegations of wrongdoing at Abramson Charter School. But what I'd like to do is summarize. I've given you a list of questions and concerns about the charter operations, and I'd like to summarize the first 3 points in my group by simply asking the board to consider whether this matter could have been dealt with last year, because many of the allegations are, and also there was a department investigation that occurred a year ago, and we really feel like there should be even concern by the board about whether there was a cover-up of all those allegations last year, because they were serious. When we look at the packet of allegations that were brought forth today, there is adequate documentation, and we do support the recommendation of the superintendent to terminate this charter, or at least the charter operator. So this could have been dealt with much sooner, possibly. There could have been steps taken, maybe short of termination of the charter, but strong steps taken even starting last year to try to correct some of these problems. The other concern I have is that the people who brought forth the complaints, some of them it looks like there were disciplinary actions taken against them. And my concern would be more for if there were members in the Department of Education who helped to cover up or to suppress the information that should have been given to the board last year. I would think if there were disciplinary actions to be taken, it should have been against those persons instead of those who wrote reports and explained what some of the problems were, and some of the teachers who were affected by this who had made complaints. I think that's very important. So I think the board should consider adopting a whistleblower type of policy to make sure that people are free to make complaints and to bring these things to the board in time where something can be done about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. May I ask one question?
Ms. Johnson, personnel matters.
It's not a personnel matter. It is. I thought whistleblowing was protected by the federal law. I just want to know. I thought it was. I thought that was a protection under the United States Constitution, that you would not retaliate against people. Well, if it's not, then I know we assumed it was.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Our next speaker is Lloyd Dressel.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Lloyd Dressel, Louisiana School Boards Association, and also a member of the Coalition for Education. We've heard here today a number of allegations, whether substantiated or not is yet to be proven, but we're concerned about what we're hearing. Classes that are unmanned, sometimes for weeks, where the children are left alone. Teachers in this country on work visas who lack sufficient English proficiency. Students earning science fair awards for their projects that were done by their teachers. Sexual allegations involving students. We're severely concerned about oversight done in the schools and who audits these schools. And then it seems that when the audits are done, that the whistleblower who's bringing the facts forward is the one that's fired. And so, like Mr. Desatel said, we are likewise concerned with that. We looked at back how was this charter initially issued. We've been told, and that's not confirmed, that this was done very hurriedly. It was done after a lunch break. There wasn't sufficient documentation in the packet. So we ask that the board be more diligently forthcoming when they grant charters in general. The one question that we have that we would like answered by the board is that what changes will BESE put into place to better monitor charter schools on behalf of the students, their education, and behalf of the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dressel. Our next speaker is Ms. Kaufman, and then Ms. Lee Barrios, and then Senator Willard Lewis.
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Angelique Kaufman. I'm a parent of 2 teenage daughters from Abramson. First, I want to start off by saying I respect everyone's opinion, but what I have been hearing is a lot of, we heard, we care about the children, we're very concerned. I haven't seen any of you all at a meeting, any of the ones who just left at a meeting, but everyone is concerned from afar. I want to know how many people live where I live. Who lives in the East? To be so concerned, Ms. Tyler, this is my first time laying eyes on you. I have been at every meeting, everything I've given. I have listened to Mr. White ramble on, plan A, plan B, no answers. Not one time have I seen you. You are the head of the system. Not one time. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to insist that you address our state superintendent. And
okay, well, I want to address her. I want to address it in general. In general, I have not seen anyone there. I understand that you all have your laws and everything, but these are my children. When it comes down to my children, that is all that I have. These people have given my children a very good education. My daughters have been in New Orleans public school system since they were born, and never have I had anyone from the school system, from a school period, come to my house. Ms. Kaufman, do you have your school uniform? Do your daughters do you need help with uniforms? Do your daughters need free tutoring, free tutoring? I have these things are unheard of, and I feel like all this, Pelican, I think it's a point of you all being intimidated by the fact that these people have accomplished in 4 years what you have yet to accomplish.
Lee Barrios, retired state and national board certified teacher from Louisiana. Madam Chair, Board, and Superintendent Tyler, I represent the Louisiana State Certified and National Board Certified Teacher cohort of the Coalition for Louisiana Public Education. It's the sincere hope of all members and cohorts of the coalition that issues of grave concern surrounding specifically the Abramson Charter and generally the entire charter system be fully addressed and corrected. With several glaring examples of negative results due to the apparent lack of proper monitoring of charters, the questions that the public and educators ask is what changes, when, and how will the public be made aware of changes that BESE and the Department of Ed put in place for better monitoring of charter schools to assure, first of all, that students are receiving more than an adequate education with a highly qualified certified teacher in every classroom every day, as required by federal and state statute? Or will BESE continue to use a temporary loophole in NCLB to allow charters to hire unqualified, inexperienced novice interns to serve as teachers, a loophole that has been challenged in the federal lawsuit Renee versus Duncan, a loophole that allows low-income students and students of color to be disproportionately taught by other than certified, highly qualified teachers. Secondly, to assure that students enter a safe and secure environment when they walk through the doors of every Louisiana public school as promised by and is the responsibility of the Department of Ed and BESE. And lastly, what changes to assure that the public tax dollars are being spent properly and efficiently for the purpose of educating their children, rather than lining the pockets of charter operators or their corporate owners who can evidently afford to take out full-page ads in the Times-Picayune and the Advocate, and more often than not are from out of state and even out of country. The coalition supports the revocation of the Pelican charter operator in hopes that a new operator will allow Abramson to provide a quality education, if that is the case now, for the students who now attend, and will eliminate serious problems underlying current allegations. It seems to me that all the speakers here have made a case for replacing Pelican so that they can assure the continuation of what they say are quality services.
Thank you, Ms. Arias. Senator Cynthia Willard Lewis. And then we have one final speaker.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to address this distinguished board. Let me first begin by expressing my deep regrets to Ms. Gilliam for her tragic situation, and that she had to come forward and share her emotional, passionate observations of impact on her child and her family. That being said, my overall comments are directed towards establishing a safe environment for all of our children to succeed and to achieve. And the fact that as I have been through numerous community meetings, read numerous headlines, seen numerous stories, months after an incident, I am particularly troubled and must say that the issue is one of accountability and consistency in due process, immediacy in responsiveness, and reporting requirements. As I respond to all of the phone calls as well as emails from the parents of the children in my district, the bottom line, I believe, is there has been a tremendous failure to the children that is shared by the Recovery School District for its lack of policies, procedures, and monitoring and evaluation, and that it does not matter to the child or to the parent in his or her desire to seek an excellent opportunity for her child, whether it's RSD, whether it's charter, whether it's Orleans Parish. There is a formula for success for our children, but it begins with the safety of the child. And so that being the case, whenever there is any incident that, in my humble opinion, requires the law enforcement agency of that particular area to go onto that campus, that incident must be immediately reported. Whether there is no finding of any situation, it must be reported to the RSD, to the Department of Ed, to whomever. And that the school system, whatever the system is, must engage in some internal fact-finding itself. Because whereas there may not be a criminal situation, there may be other issues engaged. And that is an appropriate, I believe, assessment of what has failed to happen in this situation, which is still alleged. That the school has been stigmatized by an alleged situation. That families have been traumatized by an alleged situation. And you all, with all of your might, are attempting to wade through the facts and push us forward with some consistency and some uniformity. I'm very troubled that there has been no consistency in reporting requirements and uniformity in the application of those requirements, not just for this one school, but for every school. And I have spoken again and again and again that there may be an incident in one school, but there are incidents in other schools. But because the telescope and the microscope have not been brought to bear on those campuses, they are unreported. As you have found out, this was unreported. And so again, as we move forward, we must make sure that there is aggressive monitoring and that individuals who are in administration understand that every incident must be reported. And we heard today, a letter was sent to the Department of Education. I'm very troubled and concerned, particularly as a state legislator, that you all never got the letter because you have governance and you are our highest and last point of recourse. And any opportunity for change and improvement now, because the system did not work at the minor steps, now has to be brought to you all for your wisdom and for your guidance. I'm very troubled that it happens after many, many months of confusion and chaos in the community a few days before school starts. I'm very concerned about that. And as I close, I would say, as you consider this issue of revoking, again, consistent application of policies and procedures for you all, I think, is extremely important. And that whatever the outcome is, we guarantee that there is indeed reporting requirements for all schools in all systems, no matter what the systems look like, and there is immediacy of reporting all incidents, no matter the nature, whether it is criminal, whether it is ethical, whether it is financial, whatever it is, you all need to be informed no matter how minor. Department of Ed needs to be reformed and needs to respond. And I'm very, very troubled that that did not happen in this situation. And lastly, as the Recovery School District goes through its $1.8 billion rework of new schools and infrastructure, I am again extremely troubled that the parts of the city that receive the greatest devastation, many of our schools are still in portable buildings, still just one step up from a FEMA trailer, while there is $1.8 billion of work moving forward, that on this particular campus, you have a number of schools in FEMA buildings, 3 schools on one campus, and that the aesthetic environment, the technological environment, all of those things that advance the safe and productive behavior of our children is not occurring. And we would appreciate your guidance to the Recovery School District, because again, just from a physical, visual observation of where are schools in portable buildings and where are schools in bricks and glass, it's very, very obvious. We need you to weigh in and help us, because the infrastructure, the physical environment of the campus, the technological assistance of cameras and all of the monitoring equipment help bring safety and assurance and protection to our children. And as I would close, that situation troubles me so much that as we are now in the 21st century, but when you look at where all the portable buildings are, Dr. Tyler, Dr. Givens, it appears as if it's still separate but equal. If it's separate, it's not equal. We need to have uniformity of opportunity, not just for educational curriculum, but also for educational facilities that help support the brilliance of our children. Thank you so much.
I don't think that this is the exact moment, but I think that it is appropriate at some point during this meeting that you do lay out the framework presented to the board yesterday on some increased compliance oversight and some action that the board needs to take upon your recommendations. But I would suggest that we do that this afternoon. But if Senator Willard Lewis is not here, that we do forward a copy of that recommendation to her so that she knows what we are looking at and what we're doing. Okay, fine. We have another speaker on this item, Mr. Ben Slater. Mr. Slater, do you wish to address the board? Okay. Right here. I'm doing it.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, my name is Ben Slater. I'm one of the attorneys who represents Pelican. And I would ask you, as you give consideration to these matters today, to pay careful attention to the materials that Mr. Andrew produced earlier today to you. This incident with regard to the sexual matters is certainly disturbing. I think it's also singular and unique. I'm afraid it's taken on greater import from a standpoint of the overall performance of the school than perhaps it should. But in terms of the handling of the matter by the school, and some of the questions have been addressed regarding that, there is a lot of detail in our response. And essentially, the conclusion is that the failure here was the failure of a single teacher who failed to recognize what was taking place initially. But I would also point out that this particular child had demonstrated none of these problems until February of 2011, and that the incident that culminated in his withdrawal from the school and what you've heard about today occurred in March. So we're talking about something that occurred over a very brief period of time, and I think that's a point that may have been overlooked, that this is not systemic. This was a singular event. It was an unfortunate event. I certainly don't mean to make light of that, nor does my client in any way, but I don't think it represents the way in which this school operates or intends to operate. I would like to just make a couple of points that are entirely not legal, and that is just to elaborate briefly about what will happen if this board acts to revoke the charter. Granted, there will be schools starting on August 10th on the Abramson campus, I would assume. But many of the staff who are currently employed, whose contracts began August 1st, won't be there. Many of these teachers are going to leave and go elsewhere because of the insecurity about jobs. It's likely that the administration will be replaced. And an essential part of the success of Abramson School are the procedures and practices that Pelican has brought to the school. And just to touch on those briefly, they've established a point system for discipline that has resulted in a 0% suspension rate. They have test preparation, after-school test preparation, weekend preparation, tutorials on Saturdays for children to learn how to perform on these tests. And every 3 weeks they're tested, and if it occurs that a child is not doing well, they are required to go to these Saturday tutorials to work to improve their effort and to catch up on the learning curve. Moreover, the teachers at this school go to the homes of the families. Many working mothers and people, single-parent families where the adult is not able to come to the school meetings. On their own time, the teachers at this school go to the homes with the report cards and the records and discuss with those families what those children need. They do that because they want to improve education. They're not being paid to do that. This school has a college guidance program in which 92% of the graduates of Abramson School are now being accepted to college. 90% of those children are the first members of their families ever to attend a college. That's a remarkable achievement. Pelican believes strongly, and you've heard from the members of our board today, about the need for science and math to be better taught in our schools, because these professors have seen, and which we've all read about in the paper, that our country is falling behind in those areas. I think we're 40th in the world or something now in science and math.
Later, can you?
I will wrap it up.
Bring it in about.
I will bring it up. They have this robotics program that is second in the entire area. They're competing with the private schools and with Ben Franklin, and they're second in the entire area. The accusation that these students are having teacher assistants in preparing for science fairs is really a racist allegation. It's because the expectation is that these children purchase on their own. Well, in fact, as you can be informed, the universities in our area, Tulane and UNO professors, come to the campus and assist these students in working on these science fairs. And they make their campuses available so that the students from Abramson can go to their campuses to work on this. This is not trickery or rigged that these children are doing as they are in these science fairs. It is because of the effort and attention and guidance and enthusiasm that's being instilled in these children as they have an opportunity to learn. So the Abramson School, and you've heard this from these parents today, their children are enthused, perhaps for the first time in their lives. They are excited about learning. They want to progress. They're pleased with the efforts that they're making and the progress they're making. They have real pride. And what is going to happen if you take away this charter is that all of that's going to cease. Yes, you can bring in another operator, but the administration won't be there. The process won't be there. The teachers won't be going on Saturday. The university providing their facilities for the science projects. The robotics school that goes on year-round won't be functioning. It'll be just like any other ordinary school. And that's what I think has caused so many of these good people to come here today to register their strong belief that this management should be allowed to continue. Yes, there are some isolated problems. There are many allegations. This process did not start, as we understand it, until July the 14th is when this initial investigation began. That's 3 weeks ago. Please do not rush to judgment and destroy this school. To put this back together. We will lose our students when these parents go out and buy school uniforms. They have to send their children. They can't afford to send them back here. So I'm asking you, please, consider what we provided to you today. Consider the information that you've heard and the statements from these parents. Allow us to work with this board to solve whatever deficiencies there are, but please don't destroy this wonderful school that has come about.
Audience members, we have reviewed all the cards that said no comment. We have one card out of that section from Nishandra Hill. Does she wish to speak?
Good morning. I have 2 kids that attend Aberson. One is special needs. We're talking about the special needs kids being looked over. It wasn't until he attended Aberson that his first grade teacher noticed that he had problems. When he was in other schools, I tried to get him help. Not only did she help him to get in special ed, when he left her class, she still helps him right now. Not only her, he have a whole support system that made a plan just for him. And when you say, I have an older son, 15, that did a science project, he worked hard on it. So when you say that they cheated and stuff, basically I'm feeling that y'all saying my son cheated.
Yeah, let's be very clear on that. That was a report that was produced by teachers in the school, making with that allegation that children were receiving help. This board has not said that.
Okay, well, my son worked day and night, but mainly my main concern is when I heard about the school through the news supposed to be shut down, my son wasn't going to any other school. He's really sick. He's in and out the hospitals. Aberson's the only ones that come, take their time, teachers, especially the administrators. Which one of them was his teacher? Well, I'll say 2 of them. Still, they not only is concerned about him, concerned about me when I'm in a hospital. I can ask for a better support system than them. So when you speak of special needs, he's getting his needs. Continue.
Thank you very much. I have one final card. It is not on this item, but it is on item 13, board members, and which is an item that I believe will be wrapped in the motion to go into executive session. So, Karen Harper Royal, do you wish to speak to this item? Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to speak with that card. On item 13, that is pursuant to the current federal lawsuit regarding special education issues. And I just wanted to reiterate that, or at least put out there that it is exactly this type of, this school was on a corrective action plan for not following special ed law. And we are to believe that the charter school law says that if you fail to follow a law, that your charter can be revoked. The corrective action plan was in place, and still a child was missed. A violation of a child's rights occurred. He was not identified. The failure of child find is one of the areas that's included in this lawsuit. While on corrective action plan, we must look at our monitoring process to find out how did this happen. We have a pending lawsuit, the school was on a corrective action plan, and still a child was failed. It doesn't matter the quantity of failures. If one violation of the law occurs, your state law says if you violate the law, your charter can be revoked. We shouldn't have to have a number of children being violated. One child's civil rights ought to be enough. And there were more signs that the school should have seen during the time that they were being monitored. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Royal. Board members, so we're at the point that for me to ask for a motion to go into executive session.
Madam Chair.
You're not going to let me finish?
Well,
Mr. Garvey, and then go ahead. Mr. Garvey, and then Ms. Gibbons.
I didn't know if what you were saying was going to dissolve this proceeding, which would make it impossible for me to ask this.
Well, then go right ahead.
Let me ask you now, and this is a question for our attorney. We heard from one of the last speakers, one of the attorneys for Abramson, that if this board were to decide to revoke this charter, that the school would have no other options, and it would be the end of the story, if I understood what he said correctly. And my question to you is that true, whether or not that is, I understood him correctly, but is it true that this school has no other options? It's my understanding that it's not true, and that this school, in fact, already has filed a lawsuit seeking an injunction, and that a judge will review what this body is doing, what BESE is doing, and if that judge sees that BESE has violated the law or has acted unreasonably, that judge will issue an injunction. Is that true?
There has been a suit filed where they did request injunctive and declaratory relief. Is that?
Well, and does the judge have the option to issue an injunction if he finds that we have violated the law?
Yes.
Thank you. Or if he, well, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Do board members have any other questions before we move to the motion? Ms. Johnson or Ms. Gibbons, did one of you want to
I
speak?
move that we go into executive session.
Okay.
For items 11, 12, and 13.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. May I ask that you, just for the record, that we go into executive session to discuss matters relative to litigation concerning Pelican Educational Foundation versus BESE, litigation concerning Berry versus Pasteuric, personnel and investigative proceedings regarding allegations of misconduct. Would you mind incorporating your motion to include that language?
Let the motion reflect the language.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Gibbons. Yeah. Okay, but I need a roll call vote, please.
All right. Mr. Baird?
Yes.
Mr. Baird votes yes. Mr. Bennett? Mr. Bennett votes yes. Ms. Bradford?
Yes.
Ms. Bradford votes yes. Ms. Bouquet? Ms. Bouquet votes yes. Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey votes yes. Ms. Givens? Ms. Givens votes yes. Mr. Geis?
Yes.
Mr. Geis votes yes. Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson votes yes. Ms. Estug?
Yes.
Ms. Estug votes yes.
Okay, it is now time for me to inform the public that no votes will be taken in executive session. All votes of this board will be cast in public. And I have one more motion I need to request, and that is a motion to allow Acting State Superintendent Ollie Tyler, Joan Hunt, Angelique Free, Aaron Bendeley, and Catherine Posniak into the executive session along with the board members. Thank you, Mr. Garvey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bennett. I need a roll call, I understand, on this.
Mr. Baird?
Yes.
Mr. Baird votes yes. Mr. Bennett? Mr. Bennett votes yes. Ms. Bradford?
Yes.
Ms. Bradford votes yes. Ms. Bouquet?
Yes.
Ms. Bouquet votes yes. Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey votes yes. Ms. Givens?
Yes.
Ms. Givens votes yes. Mr. Geis?
Yes.
Mr. Geis votes yes. Ms. Johnson is absent.
He votes yes.
Please record that as absent. Yes.
Ms. Essig votes yes.
Okay, so we are now adjourned into executive session. I wish I could give some guidance as far as when we will return, but I cannot. So I urge you to stay if you can. Thank you.
I think.
All I can tell you is you should have brought lunch.
I am sure, you know, maybe Louisiana daughter, I'm sure.
Do I have board members at the table? Okay. This time, I'd like to ask for a motion to reconvene into regular session.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Bradford. Any objection? Okay, we have reconvened the board meeting. At this time, I'd also like to ask if there is a motion concerning the matter in executive session.
Madam President.
Mr. Garvey.
I believe there's more than one motion on this subject, but this is the first motion. I move that the charter contract between the Louisiana Board of Elementary and Secondary Education and Pelican Educational Foundation, Incorporated, and its Board of Directors entered into for the purpose of operating Abramson Science and Technology Charter School be terminated immediately and the charter revoked based on a determination that the health, safety, and welfare of its students is threatened.
We have a motion by Mr. Garvey. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Buquet. Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Is there a second?
I have a second motion.
Okay, Ms. Gibbons is voting, but then I'd like to call a roll call on the first motion. Yes, a vote to support the motion, a vote of yes, will be to terminate the contract.
Mr. Bayard. Mr. Bayard is absent. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett votes yes. Ms. Bradford.
Yes.
Ms. Bradford votes yes. Ms. Buquet.
Yes.
Ms. Buquet votes yes. Mr. Garvey.
Yes.
Mr. Garvey votes yes. Ms. Gibbons. Ms. Gibbons votes no. Mr. Geis.
Yes.
Mr. Geis votes yes. Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson votes yes. Ms. Sastug.
Yes.
Ms. Sastug votes yes.
Okay.
Madam Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Lee and Mr. Romer are absent.
Okay, so noted that Mr. Romer and Mr. Lee are absent. That motion carries. We move on to the second motion. Is there a second motion?
I have a motion, please, Madam Chairman.
Yes, Ms. Buquet.
I move that the letter from Acting State Superintendent Ollie S. Tyler be to BESE President Penny Daskew, dated July 28, 2011, outlining the investigative findings of the Louisiana Department of Education, accepting the allegations regarding bribery, which were not considered by the board, be adopted as BESE's findings and the basis for termination of the charter contract.
Okay, Ms. Buquet has made a motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Garvey. Is there any objection to this motion? Hearing none, motion carries. This is a reminder that the Board of Directors of the charter school shall have the direct responsibility for carrying out the dissolution of the school and the disposition of assets in accordance with the dissolution plan and applicable law. BESE shall, at its discretion, have authority to supervise, oversee, or direct the dissolution of the business and affairs of the charter school. Audience members, I have been asked to share a couple of comments with you. There will be, as I understand it, some communication coming from RSD Superintendent John White this afternoon with more specific details. This school, the facility, will be open on August 10th. It will be a direct run school by the Recovery School District. It is the board's intent and desire that it remain as a STEM school, and that we would like to make very clear that all students that are currently enrolled in this school can remain so. So those are the comments that I have about the board's decision, and if there is there any further discussion on this item? Ms. Johnson, did you have?
I have a different motion that I'd like to make.
I think this is the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. The motion is to direct the acting superintendent in concert with the RSD superintendent to bring to the September BESE meeting the following: a clear delineation of roles and responsibilities between the LDE, the charter office, and the RSD in the monitoring and oversight of Type 5 charter schools, to outline to us what needs to be monitored and the staff and funding needed to adequately provide the monitoring. Number 3, how is the current administrative fee paid by the Type 5 charter being used? Because there's a 2% administrative fee that goes into the charter office, 1.75% of the 2% goes to the RSD. And I'm trying to figure out who is actually responsible for monitoring and overseeing charter schools. How will the board be advised on any major findings so that we are not a year later learning certain things? And what policy needs to be adopted and brought back to this board? I'm also asking for an organizational chart so that I will personally know who is in charge, and I will personally know who reports to who, to whom. So that's the essence of the motion.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. There's a motion. Is there a second to Ms. Johnson's motion by Ms. Bradford? Is there any discussion on this motion? Any comments? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. I have been advised that the comments that I shared with you were comments that the board members wanted. Should the contract be revoked, that the comments that the board members wanted shared with the parents and families of Abramson. So that is the reason that I did it. It was not something that was decided or voted on from the board, but feelings, and comments that they wanted to share if the vote was to revoke. Next item.
Item number 13, consideration of executive session relative to litigation concerning Barry v. Pastrick, docket number 10CV 04049.
Is there a motion to receive the report? Thank you, Mr. Geis. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Givens. Is any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. I believe this concludes the business. Yeah, thank you. We have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Geis. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Garvey. Meeting is adjourned.
Pelican. The whole Pelican, they terminated the contract.
I thought they were supposed to vote out here.
They did. That was them. Yes. No. They terminated the contract. Does that involve the whole Pelican?
No.
Just that.
So what we do?
Okay. Okay. Because I thought she said terminate the contract with Pelican. As long as it's them, man, I mean, the Havens.